Welcome back, everyone, to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. My name's Jared Mello, and I'm the Shepherd of Black Sheep. Hello there, Bethany. To my right here is Shadow the Night Owl. He is my buddy and my right-hand man, the spirit animal of the channel. And in this episode, we're going to go over what Steve Shirilla, Mackenzie's dad, had to say to Chris Cuomo. And spoiler alert, he says she's innocent. And in this interview, there are some things he says that I agree with. Others that I think he is either lying or in denial about, but that's what we're going to go over. Hello there, BB. What is shaking? Shadow and I say hello. And as always, as you come in, remember to like the video because likes are free. Spank that like button. Leave your DNA of choice on the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Tell a friend or 20 about the flock of black sheep here. And as always, super chats, super stickers, and becoming a channel member or gifting channel memberships, great ways to support the channel. They help me pay for Shadow the Night Owl soy-free Hootie snacks. We put some in the Ancient S500, Hootie Snack 500. Hello there, Chatty Cathy. What is shaking? Shadow and I are doing well. We just took a little break between the previous live stream and this one, but we're back. We're back and ready to go with Night Owl status. How air conditioning? It is nice and toasty here, which we like. Mavs, how are you? Let's see here. There we are. Our buddy Chris Cuomo and Steve Shirilla. Let's see what they have to say for themselves.
Frustrated. I'm unable to help my daughter personally, and I should have been yelling and screaming what we're going to talk about right from the start. And it's one of the mistakes I made during her thing is that I should have been shouting and saying what I know and what I feel is the truth. And I was
shout, let it all out. Shadow says
advised by her lawyer not to say anything, keep quiet, and it was a mistake. So,
well, all I can do is give you the opportunity and go through what we know and the question. So let's give people a little bit of context. Life before the crash was what for you, Steve?
Happy. I had my daughter. We were a family, a normal family. You know, nothing. I went to work. I came home. I talked to my daughter. I helped my daughters. I pretty much, you know, a normal family in America. I mean, that's the best way I can put it. You know, I mean, being that I've been
normal is subjective, though, wouldn't you say? Because from the outside looking in, her family looks a little eccentric. Because Mackenzie, at least from what we can see, pretty emotionally volatile. Not the average bear. In terms of even a teenage girl, teenage girls can be very variable. But even with her, she seems a little extra. I think that's safe to say, is it not? She's extra. And her parents, especially given the situation here, they seem to be a little interesting, to say the least.
Qualified that I'm some horrible parent. That's not necessarily true, and it's unfortunate. So,
what were you doing? What was your occupation?
I was an art teacher at a Catholic school.
And the documentary, just to skip a little bit.
Okay.
After the documentary, is it true that the school put you on leave?
Yeah. They got a bunch of calls from some watchdog website or something, and the school's known about my daughter and how I feel right along for the past 4 years.
And again, if you're a Catholic school teacher, you would think they'd want you to adhere to their principles. Somehow, I don't think Catholic schools are for marijuana usage. So, hey. Employers are allowed to do what they want.
They decided to come to some kind of investigation, which I really don't think was much of an investigation. It was just, they were just trying to get me out of the limelight and so they don't seem bad. So I don't know. It's unfortunate how the diocese handled it.
Are you working now?
No, I would be on summer break. I'm on my contract to the end of July. And my understanding is they're not going to re-sign me for the next year, but I wouldn't have re-signed with them anyways after how they've handled this.
So he is placed on administrative leave because of the Netflix documentary. I guess, he is going against the code of conduct and principles of a Catholic school. We are investigating allegations made on social media that one of our teachers has demonstrated poor judgment. Ha! That's one way to put it. Upon learning of the allegation, the school acted immediately and placed the teacher on administrative leave. And in this case, poor judgment means condoning marijuana usage. And also probably condoning her young daughter spending the night at boys' house. I can't imagine Catholic churches really like that very much either. Premarital sex, they're probably not the biggest fans of that.
They've just made matters.
So they say, but granted, there's certainly plenty of hypocrites in the Catholic Church too.
Worse, so, but by placating to the mob, that's unfortunate for me. So,
do you think that you'll be able to get another job easily?
I don't know. I haven't tried. I got the summer. We'll see. I might not ever teach again. I'm a good teacher. I'm a passionate teacher. To be canceled by the mob is just sad and just.
So Leela, who are these people? She asked. And for everyone else who doesn't know, Shadow and I thought that we should explain it. Mackenzie Shirilla is from the Netflix documentary The Crash. She was convicted of murdering Dom Russo and Davion Flanagan by driving 100 miles per hour into a brick wall. And that's what the documentary is about. She got 15 to life for both of them, but instead of run consecutively, they are run concurrently. Now, this is Steve's dad, or excuse me, Mackenzie's dad, Steve. Mackenzie has a mother named Natalie and a little sister named Danielle. In their dynamic, Mackenzie is the golden child. Danielle is either an invisible child and scapegoat or just an invisible child. Mackenzie's mom, Natalie, she seems to be enmeshed with her daughter. They have that best friend dynamic going on. She might have some borderline traits. Steve here is an enabler / flying monkey, it sounds like. And Natalie might be in charge of this dynamic, but Mackenzie is definitely in charge of the dynamic more so than Steve or Natalie both. So they kind of let her run the show, even though she's a kid. But of course, now she's in prison. She's been in prison now for 4 years. She's been trying to get an appeal. She's been trying to get a new trial. And in this interview, there are some things Steve is going to say that I actually think he has a point about. But then there's other things he says that are just off the rocker and seem a little bit delusional. And we're going to go over it.
Sad and disappointing.
How often do you get to speak to your daughter?
Quite a bit. Quite a bit. We see her twice a month. And we talk to her quite a bit.
How would you describe her disposition and how she's doing?
She's in jail. She's in jail, so she's struggling with that overall. But she's in jail. Every day is the same day for her, so I don't know. She's surviving.
How do you think she's handling herself and this situation and the media?
I think she's handled herself well in the media and stuff. I don't look. She's in jail. I don't know what everybody expects her to be. I don't know what you would expect her to be. She's doing the best she can. Yeah.
You know what Straight Arrow News is? I'll tell you what, make your own Straight Arrow, what their future is. Do you think your daughter sees a life after this? Does she think she's going to get out?
I believe she sees a future. She's about to take classes, start taking some schooling. It's jail. I'm not in there, so I don't really know how it all really works and how it is for her every day, I can only guess. But I overall, I think she's doing the best she can. That's the best way to put it.
Has she had any trouble inside?
Define trouble. Does she?
Fights,
No.
drama,
No.
Being
There's drama.
solitary.
No.
So this is where I say, are you lying or just delusional here or in denial? Because anyone who's looked into any of this, Mackenzie has been clearly breaking the rules in prison. So, again, I think he's just fibbing here and trying to avoid accountability for his daughter. But it's clear to see all these infractions are present. They're there. So, it's weird that he would choose to lie about that.
Altering her clothes kind of stuff, or being out of place. They have to be in a certain area at certain times, and sometimes she's out of place. So I'm not in there, so I can't say for. She's not violent. There's no fighting. It's not like that at Marysville.
What do you want us to know about the allegations made by the ex-inmate who says she was your daughter's lover and that your daughter has girlfriends? What do you make of that?
I don't know anything about that. I'm not feeding that.
And if you hear that voice in the background, that's Natalie, Steve's wife, Mackenzie's mother. She's kind of chirping in his ear, probably coaching him up, telling him what to say. Chris Cuomo invites her on, to his credit. Would have been interesting to see what that dynamic was like, but she doesn't come on.
It's not what I want to be here to talk about. I don't know. I can't speak for that. You can't believe everything you hear.
Let me tell you why I ask. I don't care if your daughter has girlfriends or not. Doesn't matter to me at all. However, if I were her parent, I would know.
It doesn't matter to me. She's in there. That's her life. I can't. Nothing I can say or do is going to change anything she does in there. Look, she's almost 21 now. She's been in jail for almost 4 years now. I mean, all I can say is she's doing the best she can, and there's nothing I can do or say that's going to alter where she is or at this point.
Let's talk about that. And just so you know, Steve, I don't know what you know about me. I have no agenda here. I'm not here to judge your daughter. That's already been done, right? I want to understand things that were left very open-ended and that are conflicting.
Okay.
However, I will give you the opportunity to deal with judgment. The reason I asked the question about what you know and what you don't is, as a father, and we have kids the same age, aren't you supposed to think that what you say will matter to your daughter and that you should know and you should have some kind of hand in her major decisions?
Yes, of course. But she ultimately makes that decision. I mean, I can just be there to advise and be there for her. And if she's got questions, and help her. I can lead the horse to water, but I can't make it drink, So
and he's not wrong about that. We mentioned that in the earlier stream too. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. But what you can do after you can't make it drink is enforce consequences. That's what you can do and act accordingly, whatever that looks like in each individual situation. That seems to be, to me, something they fell short on.
I was up until 17. I raised a strong, fierce, loyal kid. Who didn't like bullies, who stuck up for her friends. I mean, I thought I was doing a great job. She's got a big heart, and I know as soon as I say that and this goes out there, the trolls in this world are going to crucify me like they've been, which is part of the reason why I wasn't sure about coming on your.
Is Steve Shirilla calling Shadow a troll? Do you think he is? I think he might be. Shadow takes offense to that.
Coming on this podcast, she's got a big heart, and as her father, there is no way that my daughter crashed that car on purpose to hurt Dominic or Davion. It is an absolute story narrated by the prosecution. It's not true. It never has, and there's no evidence zero evidence to support any of that.
Well, let's face it here. It is certainly very possible she did it on purpose. So for him to act like it's no way in hell is a fabrication. Absolutely. Now, what I will say is there could have been better arguments the defense made. I will say that. I think the defense could have done a better job. But that being said, to say it is completely impossible, no way it's true that she did this on purpose, you can't say that. That's just inaccurate. Now, of course, who are we talking to? It's her dad. So what do we expect, I guess?
There is evidence that we can discuss if you want. It's interesting. You leave your daughter out of that equation. Do you think there's a chance she crashed into that school to hurt herself?
No, not at all. Not one bit. Not one bit. She loved life.
Your daughter was not suicidal.
Not at all. Not at all. We even had somebody do after the crash did a suicide test on her, or a questionnaire with her, and that person said that she was not suicidal. And if my daughter was suicidal, my wife would know.
This is another fabrication, because we heard from another officer the night of the crash. The officer said that Steve said, "My daughter just tried to kill herself and killed those two boys." That is what the officer said that Steve said the night of the crash. Now, apparently now he is completely denying that and saying, actually, a psychologist checked her out and she wasn't suicidal in any way. So which one is it? Is that officer lying? And it'd be one thing if Steve said, okay, I thought that the night of, but then upon further review and what the psychologist says, etc., I changed my mind. Okay, that would be one thing. But that's not what he's saying. He's acting like, I never said that. And she in no way wanted to do that. And I would say, well, there seems to be some evidence that at the very least, she didn't care. At the very least, she didn't care.
And if my wife talked with my daughter about everything. My daughter told my wife everything. There's no way she wasn't suicidal before. She's not suicidal after. That is an absolute fabrication. It's a lie.
A big understanding from people is that when it comes to you and your wife, you were too permissive, too lenient, too nonchalant. In general, what do you make of that? And then we'll pick it apart.
Come on, Cuomo. Too many ads.
You're going to get mentored by leaders from Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and NVIDIA.
Well, let's talk about people, first of all. If you don't know me and you're not in my life, and how do you say anything about me? How are you judging me without knowing me?
And part of that is fair. If we don't know exactly everything that's going on, we don't know the whole story. But what we do know, from what we do know, the text messages between Mackenzie and her dad, the text messages between Mackenzie and Dom, the phone calls between Mackenzie and her mom, we do know all of that. And we see the records from court, the things that were subpoenaed. We see Mackenzie's diagnosis. So we're able to get a picture of what's going on. Is it the entire picture? No, it's not the entire picture. But do you think what the entire picture is all of a sudden completely different than what these text messages and phone calls and subpoena records say? I wouldn't think so.
Was I lenient on some things? Yes. Was I harder on some things? Yes. I was raising my kid how I felt best at the time that I made decisions. I'm not a bad parent. I picked fights that I felt would help her, and I picked fights that I didn't want to fight with her, and I let her go, and I made her make her own decisions. And she was almost an adult. She's almost 18 at that point. My daughter was a lot like me. I learned things by doing them, and rather than being told, don't touch the stove. I had to go touch the stove to figure out that it was hot, not that I was told that it was hot. It's that kind of an analogy, I guess. If anyone that knows us knows that we weren't doing all that. We were. I don't know. It's laughable that the people think what they think about us, and if you're not in, and I look at it this way: if you're not in my boat, then it really doesn't matter what you think as the people. I mean, anyone that doesn't know me should keep their mouth shut. Personally,
you seem very bothered by it, though, Steve.
I am a fighter by nature, and if I no one would be happy about this. It does bother me that this is overshadowing what really is going on with my daughter and what went on during the trial and the bind over trial and the lack of evidence. That's my problem with this. What's happening with me is just smoke and mirrors. What the stuff against my wife is smoke and mirrors. It's nonsense that has nothing to do with how the Cuyahoga County Prosecution's Office failed to prove that my daughter did this with purpose, prior calculation or intent. That's it, and then.
Well, not to jump around too much, but I will argue to you that part of the reason that the prosecution was able to make that case is because of choices by your daughter's team with what they didn't make the case.
Absolutely.
They left the THC in her system out of the equation.
Absolutely.
And certainly the prosecution didn't want to argue diminished capacity because they want the hard crime. They want the intent, and they had the data. Your counsel ostensibly picked a bench trial.
Yeah, well, no.
We'll talk about.
That's not true. What happened was, me and my wife were not allowed to be in there with her when she made that choice. I told my daughter to do a jury trial. When he asked her, she said jury trial, and he strong-armed her and told her, "You're going against my best judgment." Blah blah blah. And
Why?
He felt the judge wouldn't be biased. He thought the judge who had been sitting on that bench for as many years as she had would be fair, and that's not what went on.
Why was he afraid of the jury?
And that's a good question. I would have said no. We want a jury trial. If I'm her defense lawyer, it's a big gamble that you're going to put the entire thing in the judge's hands. I don't know. In a case like this, I wouldn't have done that. Also, please remember to like the video out there because likes are free. Spank the like button. Leave your DNA of choice in the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And as always, super chats, super stickers, and becoming a channel member or gifting memberships, great ways to support the channel. To help me pay for Shadow the Night Owl here's soy-free Hootie Snacks. And say hello to the flock of black sheep if you're lurking out there. We have an amazing community here. Come in and say hello. They are very supportive and encouraging.
He wasn't afraid of the jury. He thought the judge would be a better gauge in this for whatever reason.
Were you aware, because, after she makes the decision, you can also change the decision before the proceeding begins, that very, very, very few people in your daughter's situation choose a bench trial. And even though statistically judges convict less often, it's because the cases that they do are usually hyper technical. And my understanding of the pleadings, and the lawyer has been very quiet about their deliberation process, was they thought they could win on the data. So the judge would be a better arbiter of that. And that to me was a gross error.
I agree with Chris Cuomo there. It was a gross error, especially hindsight being 2020. It was a gross error for the defense. And Dale made a good point. I agree. There's a lot of parents that would probably be defending their child, just like Steve is right now. If their child did something, even if it's bad, and two people die in a car accident, there's a lot of parents that would be very tempted to defend their child, even if there was some evidence against them. Even if there was a lot of evidence against them, a lot of them would be wanting leniency, right? How many parents do you know, if their kid did something like that, says, yep, they should be in prison for life? Probably not that many. And it's one of those things where it's easy to say if it's not you. But if it's you, then it becomes a little bit different, and it's tough.
My understanding, because I wasn't in the court the whole time, the lawyer kept me out of the courtroom. He was going to use me as a witness. I would hope that he looked at the evidence and saw that there was none that pointed to her being a murderer or being felonious assault. He didn't see any evidence, and I'm hoping that's what he saw. But hindsight's 2020 now. He didn't do anything for her. In fact, at the
Oh, Shadow says, what do we have here? Hark the herald angels sing. Sweet Caroline, thank you very much for the super chat. Safe, warm, respectful community. Thanks so much from us all, Jared and Shadow. Well, Shadow says thank you very much, as do I, the shepherd of black sheep, the wizard of radical self-respect. What would we do without all of our support? We wouldn't be here, is the answer, right, Sweet Caroline? So I appreciate all of the support from everyone here. And as always, likes are free, of course. Get your reps in on the like button. The subscribe button only requires 1 rep. But what you can do is tell a friend or 5 about the flock of black sheep.
End of this trial, he told me to throw him under the bus.
The new counsel in their pleadings, at least, are arguing ineffective counsel.
Yeah,
which is common. But I think that there is a basis here that could be argued.
Yes, he didn't put any of her medical records in. He didn't put any of the text messages that would have refuted some of the prosecution's evidence. He didn't do anything other than sit there and play with his pen. And mind you, I've never been in a murder trial. This is all new to me, so I'm not really sure how to gauge it. I didn't have a whole lot of advice from anybody. But he did nothing, absolutely nothing. The only time he did something was in the bind.
And that's true, Amy. I mean, a lot of parents would defend their kids. The problem for Steve is the way he's doing it doesn't really help. Like, his method of doing this kind of just makes him seem a little bit ridiculous and in denial, if not outright lying. So there's a way to do it. There's a fine line to walk. I'm not sure exactly what my fine line would be. I would have to think about it to say. But there's a way to go about it that just comes off a little bit better. And what you would want to do is emphasize in the beginning, hey, I'm heartbroken for the families of Dom and Davion. If I was in their parents' and loved ones' shoes, I would be furious and devastated right now too. And I would say, and I get it, at the very least, my daughter was being reckless. Absolutely. But that being said, the fact that it was proven to be intentional, I'm not as sure about. I think there's some questions there that could have been made. There were some points that could have been made. And maybe the prosecution is supposed to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And I would say, I'm just not sure that threshold was crossed, is what maybe I would say that if I'm her dad. But I'd be very careful. And I'd be taking a lot of accountability about the things maybe I messed up, the things that were seen in those text messages. I would say, you know what? Yeah, I need to put my foot down. I need to be more assertive, and I have to stick to it. When I say no, I have to mean it and then follow through. And perhaps I didn't do that. And the same thing with his wife's relationship with Mackenzie too. Now, it's not for him to police that, but that's something for Natalie herself to take accountability for. Steve can make suggestions to his wife, but ultimately it's up to the wife to make those changes at the end of the day. But that would be part of the tone of how I would address this if I were him.
Over trial when he was questioning the detective, and he had the detective reeling because the detective had to take a break because he was all exacerbated over it. He asked the detective at one point, "What do you think happened?" The detective's comment was, "I don't know." And I don't know why our lawyer or her lawyer didn't turn to that judge and say, motion to dismiss, because how does the guy who's finding all this evidence, all this hard evidence, not know what happened? Okay.
Did it
Anything else.
surprise you that the bind over trial, as you're referring to it, for the people listening and watching, is the legal proceeding where you decide which court it's going to be in, juvenile or
Yes,
adult?
yes,
And the decision here was made to try her as an adult. That surprised you?
yes. Yeah. She was 17 when this happened. It was an accident.
It shouldn't surprise them. I think she was 2 days before 18 is what they said, right? What was the date of this accident? What was the date of the crash? Let's see. It doesn't really matter, but she was very close to being 18, so she shouldn't be surprised. If that 16-year-old on the cruise is going to be charged as an adult, granted, that crime's worse, by the way. But if he's going to be tried as an adult, I mean, you can't really say too much about Mackenzie being charged as an adult either.
There's 4.74 seconds of black box information and nothing else. That's all it is. It's car information. It's nonlinear car information, which doesn't say what was happening in the car. Doesn't say what her state of mind was. It doesn't say what talk was going on in the car. It's nothing. They've got 4 seconds of a minute and a half drive, and that's what they based this whole on. And then miscellaneous speculation on their part. Storytelling. They set a story, and just because they said it is evidence. That's what it amounts to. You know, they like the judge's summation. She went on and on. Oh, you're hell on wheels. You picked that road. You woke those boys up. My daughter didn't do any of that.
How do you know?
It's just not true. The judge made up a story for her summation, and based on what the prosecution's narrative is, and none of it's in the evidence. It's just not there. There's no hard evidence that says prior content or prior calculation, intent, or purpose. It's just not there. It's not there. And my understanding is you're a lawyer, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I've talked to several lawyers, and every single lawyer has said that the prosecution's case was weak. And unfortunately, in Cuyahoga County, binding over, I guess, is you need this much of maybe evidence to get it bound over. My daughter's case should have never left that juvenile court. She should have been charged with two counts of vehicular homicide, and that's it. And that's it. Simple as that.
Well, it's actually statistically, if you look it up, a couple of things. It's easy for anybody to say anything when it's not their case. Hindsight's 20/20.
Yep.
A bind over trial, most juveniles get tried as juveniles. It is the exception that they get bound over into adult court because there's a presumption that kids can be rehabilitated in a way that adults cannot. They did not find that with your daughter. What does that mean to you?
They should have. Why they should have? There was no evidence to support the charges. There was none. The prosecution came up with that she's a dangerous society and blah blah blah, and there was no proof of that. They said that she had no remorse. They never spoke to her. I mean,
so one quick thing, and then we'll keep going about what the evidence was and why. Look, if they had brought in that she was intoxicated with the THC, if they had gone to a jury trial, if she had testified, this may have been a very different situation. However, those decisions weren't made. But just so people know, is that your wife that I'm hearing who's with you there?
Yeah. Yes.
Now, look, that's totally fine. Tell her I said hello. She is welcome to join. She's welcome to join. I didn't want to box her out, just so you know. I'm welcome. If she wants to talk, she's welcome.
She's sorry. I don't mean to smile or make light of this. She's my producer.
No, I get it.
She doesn't want me to say something that, okay.
What do we have here? Says Sweet Caroline. Thank you so much, Sweet Caroline, for another $10 super chat. Shadow, you are looking particularly contemplative today. Bless your gorgeous heart. Contemplative. Did you hear that, Shadow? Probably because the angle of his neck, right? Shadow says, thank you so much. He's going to enjoy some soy-free hootie snacks on Sweet Caroline and the flock of black sheep. Shadow's also been wondering how the Harper's Ferry owls are. And how are the owls in the land down under, Sweet Caroline? How are the Australian owls? Is there a version of owls that are marsupial-like? Probably not. Marsupials are, I guess owls would be considered mammals, so maybe not. Maybe there is a marsupial owl. Is there? Shadow's curious.
Free to say whatever she wants, however she wants, and if she wants to join, that's fine by me. I'm just putting it out there, Steve, just to explain who we're hearing. Look, we all know the phone has positive house with a 20-year-old, unusual. 17-year-old gets in trouble at school, known as a bully. You don't seem to care. Those are the suggestions about her. They sicken you. Why?
Because it's not true. She wasn't a bully. She wasn't a bully. She stuck up for herself. She stuck up for her friends. Period. That's it. She wasn't a bully. That is just lies, and it's a lie. I can't even. It's frustrating to hear it because I can't prove it, and you can't ask her because she's sitting in jail.
Well, look, she's welcome to come on whenever she wants.
But it's just not true. It's half of a story or part of a story, or it's just not true. It's not completely true.
Were you aware of what was said in the documentary from the school experiences of how she was described by some people, and where do you think that came from?
I can't explain it. Look, was she an angel? No. Did she have a problem with authority sometimes? I believe when she felt she was being unjustly treated, she stuck up for herself. That's the simple fact. And the documentary, anyways, they weren't necessarily honest with us and what they were going to use and how they were going to portray us in that documentary. Some of my comments, which all my comments were true. Anything I said, I meant. But they were part of a longer dialogue. They were part more of a, it wasn't just, I just didn't spew that statement.
I understand.
There was a reason that statement came out. Okay?
Well, this is unedited. It will air in full,
Okay.
just as it is, which is why I wanted to explain your wife's voice, just so people know. The documentary, something that I keep hearing, and I'll be honest, it didn't register with me when I saw the documentary. As you can see by what I'm wearing, I don't think that much about clothing. But you wore a T-shirt that said "Boom."
I did.
In a documentary about a car crash.
No. Well, I wore a shirt that represented a YouTuber.
So what Shadow says about Steve also is this: the way he carries himself and his facial expressions and his tone of voice, it just comes off as very teenage boyish. It doesn't seem like a fully mature, self-actualized adult. And that's part of the problem here. And that's one of the things that kids, even as young as Mackenzie, when they're in high school, they know that. They can sense it. So when I was working at an addiction rehab for teens, they could sense the same thing. If they smelled weakness in you and they knew you weren't confident or didn't have strong boundaries and couldn't be assertive, they would walk all over you. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of that going on in this dynamic where Mackenzie realized, I can walk all over my dad. He's not going to put his foot down for real. I can manipulate him to get what I want. And then I can go get him to rub my feet and get me warm milk whenever I want. So if that happens enough, you lose respect. And then the only value that he might even have as a father to Mackenzie is, well, at least he defends me no matter what. Right? That's one thing she might be thinking in prison right now as well. At least he's defending me. That's probably what she's thinking. It's probably the only thing. Never mind the fact of all the things that went wrong. That's probably what she's thinking.
Called Drip Drop from Crime Circus. And this guy or this person on this YouTuber has been supporting my daughter almost from day one. He puts posts up all the time saying that she's been mistreated and there was there was an injustice involved, and he puts all kind of stuff out there. He's been an advocate for the past 3.5 years. So it was my way of saying thanks. It had nothing to do with the accident. It had nothing to do with the boy's death. And if it's me being colorblind or insensitive, that's not what I was doing. I wanted to shout out to this guy or this kid or this person saying, thank you. Because this guy about 6 months after the trial, he posted 4 or 5 videos. They were interviews with the detective from Strongsville and the Flanagans and some of the friends of Dominic's and Dominic's mom and Dominic's brother. And they were not in discovery. They were not in any of the discovery. They were not.
What do we have here, Sweet Caroline? We have a new discovery by Avid Dattenborough. Thank you very much for the super chat there, Sweet Caroline. Shadow, I've just read that Australia has 11 owl species. The largest Australian owl is called the powerful owl. What do you know? Shadow approves. They typically live in eucalypti trees or eucalypti forests, which are gum trees. I did not know that part. Now I'm very curious about the 11 owl species of Australia. But the powerful owl, perhaps Shadow is a descendant of the powerful owls of Australia. What do you think, Sweet Caroline? Shadow thinks so. Let's see here. So thank you very much, Sweet Caroline. Everyone else, remember to like the video, spank that like button, and subscribe to the channel as well. Shadow and I appreciate all of the support.
Not there, okay? And all of a sudden we see these interviews, and in the interviews, all of them said that she has a problem passing out, or there's a problem, she has some kind of passing out problem, and the detective ignored it. And at some point, Dom's mother says to the detective, no one's going to see this, right? And the detective says, no, I'm not putting these in evidence. That is on Crime Circus. There's 4 or 5, maybe 6 videos that were either leaked to him, or the detective put them in after the fact, thinking nobody was going to look at them because the trial was over. So,
but there was also nothing offered by counsel in the defense case in chief about your daughter having POTS in a dispositive way from a prior diagnosis.
Yes.
Which made it look like an article of convenience.
I know that. I don't know why Jim McDonald did that. I have no idea. I don't know what his plan was. This lawyer.
Well, is the answer, Steve, that he did it because there is no prior proof of her having POTS?
There is prior proof. I witnessed it. My wife witnessed this. She's got the medical documents we gave him, had it in there. The people in those 5 interviews said something.
Did you give him any documents from a medical or clinician said she is diagnosed with POTS?
Yes. And the police
from after or from before?
Before, during the bind over,
This seems like ridiculous to me, though, because if they did, the defense would have used any expert testimony to prove this POTS diagnosis, but they didn't. No expert testimony, no doctors confirming the diagnosis, nothing. So I don't know what angle Steve's going on here. I don't even think it was a good defense anyway, the whole POTS thing. I just don't. As the other woman said on Brian Etton's channel, it happens when you stand up. That's really the problem. So sitting down in a car, I don't see where POTS would be a thing.
Jim McDonald gave us the access to all the discovery, the discovery portals for Cuyahoga County. And my wife, my mother-in-law, my sister-in-laws, we all went through that stuff night and day. And so we had it in the interviews that were leaked on Crime Circus weren't in there. We gave him all kind of files. The detective only got her medical records from the day of the accident forward. He never went and got from back behind. So,
and you're saying that medical records from before the date of the incident?
Absolutely.
And can you help us understand in what context did a doctor or any clinician ever diagnose your daughter with POTS, which for the audience is, again, a blood pressure related, heart related tachycardia, which can cause dizziness?
It's here. Let me. It's in the detective's notes too. He knew about it. Posterior orthostatic
Tachycardia,
which is
what it means is that those are fancy Greek words for that when you're in a standing position and go from sitting or vice versa.
It's not just a standing thing. It's
right.
Not just,
when there's a movement. When there's a movement in posture, orthostatic means a change from being straight.
Mm-hmm.
Your blood pressure can go up or down and give you dizziness. Yes. So there are two questions. You're saying one, the answer to the first one is yes, people knew she had it before this, which raises the question, then why was she allowed to drive?
You can drive with it. It's like epilepsy. There's not a, she was doing things to kind of control it when things happen. Water, salt pills. But that's what was going on. We were never told. No doctor says she can't drive. It wasn't an issue, even though the prosecution turned it into something.
Well, the prosecution didn't deal with it because that's not part of their case, that this happened because of POTS, because they didn't want it to be an accident. Their case is it was intentional.
But it wasn't.
Now, when you say that with such conviction, is that because your daughter has ever explained to you or your wife that something happened in the car?
No, she does not remember. That has been her story from day one. There's no memory of it. And I'm telling you, I know my daughter does not like pain. She would never, ever hurt herself intentionally. It's just not. I know my daughter. I've known that kid all.
Honestly, there's a lot of parents that once their kids do something terrible, they would say, I don't believe it. I don't believe my kid would do such a thing. That's what Tanner Horton's mother said in trial. I just couldn't believe it. I don't know who did this. I don't know what version of my son did that. And it's not uncommon for the parents just to be completely removed from what their children are capable of. They see them through rose-colored glasses. But the reality is often much darker. And if you really look at all the messages between Mackenzie and Dom, and even the way she talks to both her parents, to the outside world, it looks pretty clear, right? There's some dark stuff going on here. Mackenzie's very volatile, uses emotional blackmail, has borderline traits, narcissistic traits, antisocial traits, and someone that has those traits, even if they're only diagnosed as DMDD, you don't know what they're capable of. That's what I would say.
Her life. I know when my daughter lies. I just know my daughter. Do you know your children? I mean, can you tell when your children are telling lies or aren't being honest with you? Look,
I'd like to think so.
Okay. Well, that's how I am. I believe my daughter is painfully honest. And my wife just said she's painfully honest.
Has she ever passed out before and had no recollection of anything that happened?
Passed out and didn't remember? No. Passed out and been in an accident?
So her mother said in the background, painfully honest. What does that mean, you think? I bet you she's saying things that make her mother uncomfortable. They're that open, probably things about you wouldn't think talking to your mother about them would be appropriate. That's kind of what I think when I hear painfully honest. It's probably a bit of what's going on.
Well, at least one time. Okay. I can't speak for her memory loss. I wasn't.
So she was driving once and had an episode and had a car accident?
No. Oh, she'd only been driving for a year.
Okay. I'm sorry. I misunderstood you.
Yeah. She's passed out. She's had a couple episodes here at the house. She's had them with her friends. And all her friends have said it happens at school. I mean, at Dom's house. I mean, it happens. And I do not know why Jim McDonald, her lawyer, didn't use it. I don't understand. I'm dumbfounded why that lawyer chose not to do anything other than click his pen and sit at that desk.
And when you talked to him and said, where's the POTS stuff? What did he say?
He said, this is his words.
It was the day of the trial. I didn't even know he didn't turn it in.
He didn't even turn it in. He told us after one of the dates that the judge is not buying it. That was his word. The judge is not buying it. That was his.
She has a diagnosis.
That she has a diagnosis. That was his description to me. And if I would, in my hindsight right now, if I'd have known, I would have fired him immediately. Okay. Yeah, we didn't know he didn't turn stuff into after the fact, So I mean, there's some things we didn't.
It's almost like Chris Cuomo should be interviewing her mother. If her mother's got so much to say, she's invited on. Talk.
No, I mean, are we bad parents? No. Are we uninformed parents of a child that was on trial for murder? Yeah.
What does that mean?
She had one day. She had 1 day for defense. He did 1 day, and he didn't do much during her trial. I mean, it just wasn't there. I mean, I don't know what he was thinking. In my opinion, this man should never be allowed in a courtroom again. I mean, it's just unfortunate that he did nothing for her. I mean, that's my opinion.
And honestly, I don't disagree with that part. Actually, I think he really did poorly. There's things he could have done better for sure. 1, not a bench trial. 2, I wouldn't be angling towards the POTS diagnosis at all. I think there's another thing to say. Something about like temporary rate. I don't know, lose something to say other than that.
That's my opinion. 2020 after this fact, what did he do? So I mean, he did nothing for her.
If there is a legitimate basis for prior knowledge and existence of a diagnosis of POTS, that should have been in the evidence, and that's something that you guys should make sure is in the appeal, because obviously the judge had every reasonable basis not to buy it because she didn't have it in front of her in a way that seemed to be demonstrated before the fact.
That is in her post-conviction appeals now. It's in the post.
Right. No, I know that because I've read the pleadings. But the other thing that the lawyer left on the table, so to speak, is the intoxication. No alcohol. Okay. THC. Yes. Limit. Tough to know. They messed with the sample.
Also, folks, please remember to like the video because likes are free. Spank that like button. Subscribe to the channel too. Sweet Caroline, thank you so much for the super chat here. Jared, why is Natalie in the background telling her husband what to say? Why do you think she is not physically present in this interview? I think she's kind of just the one pulling Steve's strings here in a way, where she doesn't want to be on screen, probably because she remembers a little bit what happened when she gave that statement in court and how much backlash she got. So she said, Steve, you speak for me. I don't want the criticism. I don't want the pushback. But I kind of get the hint, the feeling that Natalie's in charge of the dynamic between her and Steve. But Mackenzie's in charge of the dynamic between the three of them. So Mackenzie seems to be able to manipulate both her mom and her dad. That's the impression that I get. Thank you so much for the super chat there, Sweet Caroline. Always appreciated. Shadow always appreciates the soy-free Hootie snacks, as he appreciates all of the support from the flock of black sheep. Thank you again.
They didn't preserve it, but we all know it was in her system. It wasn't argued as diminished capacity.
That is absolutely true.
The idea of why she was taking so much drugs, this is what you get hammered for in the documentary, where you are like, yeah, I know she smoked a lot of weed. I was okay with it. Do you still feel that way?
I knew she was smoking weed. I didn't know she was making videos and in the car. That's the stuff I found out after the fact.
Do you blame yourself for your daughter's behavior?
Do I blame myself? Could I have advised her better? Sure. Do I think it would have made any difference? I don't know. I don't have I'm sorry. I don't have a problem with the marijuana use. I'm sorry. I just don't. It's a battle that I would never win. How am I stopping her? Was I going to lock her in her room and never let her out of the room? Was I supposed to go with her everywhere she goes? Could I took the car away? There's just so many factors that had nothing to do with it. I
Again, I'm judge, Steve. I'm not judging you or your wife, but just, I don't know how much of the audience are parents, but you and I both know, as does your wife, the answer to every suggestion you just made is yes, that's what we do. I told you not to drink with your friends. You drank. Now you're not going out. Oh, you did it again. Now you can't drive. Oh, you did it again. Now you're not going anywhere for a week.
We have grounded her. And
that's why parenting can suck. That's why we're not their friends.
I agree. Totally agree. I've taken her door off her room. I've taken I've taken her phone, all her electronics. I mean, this kid is not unpunished. Okay. Did we dote on our daughter? Yeah. Did I give her what I could? Yes. I gave her things I didn't get when I was a kid.
That's a big one there. People overcompensate. If they thought they were neglected or their parents were too strict, they probably overcompensate in the other direction. And then you get this.
That's me being a parent. I love my kid.
Go ahead.
I love that kid. There was not a problem with her until this accident and how it got blown out of proportion and how everything now is so blown out of proportion. It's, mind you, nothing that I'm doing or saying, nothing my wife has said has anything to do with the prosecution not having any evidence to support their charges. That's it. Okay. It's just smoke and mirrors after the trial. Anything that, oh, we're terrible parents. Oh, we entitled her. It has nothing to do. Me not caring that she was smoking marijuana with her boyfriend and her friends has nothing to do with that accident. It has nothing to do with it.
Do you think the documentary filmmakers had an agenda? Do you think that they were out?
I believe they did. I believe they misrepresented themselves when they spoke to us. I believe they came in with a set idea of who my daughter was and who we are. And I also feel, though, once they started talking to us, I think we gave them other stuff to look at, but in the end, their editor and the way they produced it went against what they said to us. And the families, my understanding is the families had editing control during this documentary because they were able to view it prior to it hitting the air. And my understanding, and we weren't allowed. Yeah, we weren't allowed. So, like I said, I believe they had an agenda and they did it. And that was a mistake on our part because we believed that they wanted to be an unbiased, fair platform for us to give our story out. And if they would have used the 3 days they interviewed us stuff, I think there would have been a different light on that documentary. It would have looked different. There would have cast some more light on what the prosecution has and does not have. And the narrative that they put out is just that story.
You have what they have and you have the narrative. We'll put that in two pieces. The first point. Let me ask you this
question before you go. What do you think they have as evidence?
Okay. Here's the problem for the defense with this case. There is an unusual amount of objective data about what happened after that right turn was made and until the car struck the sign.
Actually, no, hold on. That's not true.
Steve, let me explain why I say it.
Let me explain, because I've looked at all this evidence. They got her turning. They got her turning on the road, the right turn, blinker, blah, 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 right?
Yes.
We agree?
Nice and slow.
Nice and slow, like a normal, okay. The road is a cut through. In Strong's order. It's a known cut through. The detectives, even in their notes, state as much. Okay. It is a cut through. Now, there is no evidence from just after the turn to 4.74 seconds prior to that car hitting that wall. There's nothing. There is absolutely zero evidence. There's no black box information. There's no cabin recorder. There's nothing. And mind you, I'm not saying Potts is the reason for it. I'm not saying the car had an issue. I'm not saying the boys did anything. I don't know. I have no idea what happened in that car. And if I don't have any idea, nobody does. And
I understand. Now, the problem with that in terms of the judge is I don't remember anything from Mackenzie. If Mackenzie gets on the stand and remembers everything and tells any other kind of explanation for what happened in the car, this may have been different. Yeah, but her saying, I don't remember anything, is a suspicious answer to people in my business.
I think it's an honest
It
answer.
may be.
At any time, she could have
It
said,
may be.
Dominic attacked me in the car. Deviant attacked me in the car.
That's true.
She could have done that. She could have threw
That's
both
true.
of those kids under the bus. Okay. And I'm not saying that happened. What I'm saying is there are many possibilities that could have happened from that turn to 4.74 seconds when that black box turned on.
Yes.
And that black box information is nonlinear. It doesn't record. It records bop, 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 bop. Okay. And we had a car expert look at it, and he says, well, maybe she could break at this point. She may have broken between the 2 points. And our lawyer, her lawyer, had that information too and chose not to use it. Again, I do not know why the lawyer chose not to use what resources and what information we did have.
Understand.
Dale, a cut-through road is basically a road that people use as a shortcut. They're probably not supposed to be using it, especially since there was a school right there. But it's a cut-through that cuts between a couple major roads, or busier roads, I should say.
I understand what you're saying. This is why I answered that they have data. Okay. You're right about the EDR. Why? That's the way an EDR works, is that after there is an impact, it keeps only that small window of data.
What happened? My understanding of
What do you think, flock of black sheep? Should I volunteer to be Steve and Natalie's PR person? I'd probably be a very good PR person for them. I should have a business card with Shadow and myself, and I'll say, we should be your PR. Everything that you say should go through us. And if you do that, we guarantee you will at least look better than what you're making yourself look like right now. What do you say? Now, we know funds might be tight as you don't have a job with your Catholic school stuff, but we'll figure out something.
Happened is the car was coming down the road at a good clip. I can't explain the speed. Nobody's going to be able to explain the speed because nobody alive other than my daughter was in that car is alive now. Okay. And again, the boy, let me say this because I'm going to get nailed for this.
Don't worry about the reaction. Worry about the authenticity of the statement. That's all that you control.
I feel for those two boys. I'm heartbroken for both two boys. And if I can give my life, like I said right from the start, I gladly give my life for those two boys to be here today. Okay. I've never been more torn during an event. How do I feel grief and remorse and pain for the families and for the two boys? How do I do that? And then feel happy for my daughter because she's alive. My daughter's lucky to be alive. And I know people are going to go, good. Okay. Look, my daughter's lucky to be alive. She's lucky to be walking. She's lucky not to be a vegetable.
I agree.
Okay, she's lucky. She's the luckiest.
I agree.
And she struggles with that. But I'm torn. It's horrible. It's a gut-wrenching feeling I have every time it comes up. And that's all I've been thinking about for 4 years. And now I have to think about my daughter being unjustly charged. And then every time I open my mouth and say it and point to where it is, I get people.
And here's the thing. That sentence was probably more just than unjust. I'm just saying, as a defense attorney, maybe they could have found a way to poke some holes in it. And I'd be curious if I ever get the chance to talk to Matt Murphy, and if I get to talk to him about this case in particular, I would say, Matt, is this a case you would even file? Would you even have filed this case if you're the prosecutor or DA in Ohio in this area? Would you even file? I'll be curious what he would say to that. And I'll be curious his thoughts on this entire case too.
Questioning, oh, that's a lie. Oh, you're making that up. Why didn't your lawyer use it? Look, if you want to know why the lawyer didn't do it, you need to talk to the lawyer. The lawyer, in hindsight, is a terrible lawyer, and he shouldn't have it. He should not be able to practice law ever again, in my opinion, after what he did to my daughter.
I understand, and you're entitled to it. Just to close the loop on this, okay? I have a lot of experience, obviously, almost 30 years, and watching the evolution of event data recorders. That's why I say EDR. EDR is event data recorder.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Here's what she had that made it compelling about intent. And you don't have to agree with this. I don't have
I'm
to
not
agree
going
with
to, because I kind of feeling what you're going to say, but I disagree with it because
So
okay,
go ahead,
sorry.
Steve.
I'm sorry.
No,
I don't mean to interrupt you.
I'm
I'm
here
just,
for your answers and opinions, not my own. Go
Okay.
ahead. Why don't you like the assumption that all the
'Cause-
data they had indicated a
What the car was
constant
doing.
acceleration?
I can't explain the constantly. There's a picture with her slipper on the gas pedal stuck underneath the brake.
Has anyone seen this picture before? I have not. Slipper on underneath the brake. What is that supposed to mean?
Could have been the car. The car has a history. Toyota's cars like that have a history of that gas pedal accelerating. Okay, mind you, I'm not.
And again, and if that's a true story, I don't know if it is. But if it is, that's something the defense could have said. They would have to put their ducks in a row correctly, so it doesn't look like they're just throwing shit at the wall, hoping something sticks. But they have to have a solid plan of attack. Okay, this, and let's see. And leave it up to the jury's hands.
Not saying that's what happened. I don't know. What I'm saying, it's a possibility. And if it's a possibility, how do you rule it out that it wasn't? You got that. My understanding is that the car was coming down the road at a good clip. The car was out of control at some point. The car thought it was flipping over, and the black box turned on. This is prior to the crash. This is prior to it hitting the sign or hitting the wall. The black box turned on. The car thought it was flipping over. There was a steering wheel right to left or something. I don't have the right. It went the right to the left to the right, something like that. And then both side airbags deployed prior to that car hitting that sign. And I don't know if anybody knows what a side airbag explodes like. It's not like I'm in a pillow fight at a sorority house. It's not like poof. These are explosions. And then there's powder everywhere. And mind you, I'm not saying that's the cause. She wouldn't be able to see where she was going anywhere. Now, this may be a folly of things that went on. It may have been medical. It may have been the boys. It may have been, my understanding is the boys and her had taken shrooms that night, which I had no idea about after the fact. Yeah, my understanding is the boys had shrooms in it, but it could have been anything. I just don't.
And honestly, drinking and driving or shrooms and driving would have been even a better defense, because you wouldn't get intentional homicide, I don't think, with that. I don't know. Maybe you'd be able to get a vehicular homicide with that. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how that would work.
I don't know. I can't say, well, it's most certainly Potts, or it's most certainly the car, or it's most certainly the boys, or, there's no evidence to put a finger on it. And if you can't say that this is what happened, then how are you charging her? How are you saying, oh, now, sorry, one more thing. In the documentary, in between the reflection videos and Tim Troop walking down the hall all handsome and stuff, he's heard saying, we looked at everything and ruled it out. So it's this. So we ruled everything out. And I'd like to know what information and what evidence they actually used to rule everything else that could have happened. So that's just.
And again, that is something the defense attorney should have pressed the prosecutor on. How are you ruling these things out? Because it's up to the prosecution to prove it, right? They got to rule those other things out and prove this is what happened beyond a reasonable doubt. I don't think the defense attorney did a good job.
Him talking. That's him talking and saying, look, I'm lazy. We just want it to be murder. It's like the analogy is here. The wife dies. The husband did it. That's it. That's the analogy that's going on here. There's no evidence of why it happened. There's no evidence of why. There will never be any evidence of why. And that's the point that needs to be taken here. That black box information is about the car. I can't explain the acceleration. I can't explain why the pedal was down. Could it have been the slipper stuck on the pedal? Could it have been the car? Yeah, it's just as likely as she did it on purpose. And there's no evidence of purpose. And speeding is not a precursor to murder. It's not. Sorry. It's recklessness. It's reckless. That's why it should have been vehicular homicide, or if worse, reckless vehicular homicide in the juvenile court, which is what our lawyer said it should have been. The one time that's what he said. He was dumbfounded when they bound it over.
All right, let's look at the other side, right? Because there are two sides at least in every trial, which is why they're so compelling. You have two invested storylines. The narrative of the why comes into the relationship between Dom and your daughter and perceived threats, etc. And there were other texts.
That's a lie. That's a lie. I'm going to cut you off. Sorry, I got to cut you off. That's a lie. That is a lie.
How am I
volatile
lying?
is not the right word. That is harsh. These kids.
Volatile is absolutely the correct word. And this is probably the most delusional thing he says in the entire thing. Let's look at it again.
Is not a precursor to murder. It's not. Sorry. It's recklessness. It's reckless. That's why it should have been vehicular homicide, or if worse, reckless vehicular homicide in the juvenile court, which is what our lawyers said it should have been. The one time that's what he said. He was dumbfounded when they bound it over.
All right, let's look at the other side, right? Because there are two sides at least in every trial, which is why they're so compelling. You have two invested storylines. The narrative of the why comes into the relationship between Dom and your daughter and perceived threats, etc. And there were other texts.
That's a lie. That's a lie. I'm going to cut you off. Sorry, I got to cut you off. That's a lie. That is a lie.
How am I lying?
Volatile is not the right word. That is harsh. These kids fought and they broke up and they got back together. That was their MO. They weren't fighting. This wasn't a volatile relationship. They were never, ever.
Not a volatile relationship. I mean, what is that? Are you gaslighting, lying, or in denial? Like, which one? It's either gaslighting or lying, because it's clear as day. Their relationship was volatile, toxic, and unhealthy. The only person who wouldn't recognize that is someone who is also volatile, unhealthy, and toxic. So if it's your normal, you wouldn't think anything of it. But to the outside looking in, oh yeah, all of that emotional blackmail, threats, controlling behavior, gaslighting, bullying, intimidating, open this door, or I'm going to key your car, answer your phone, or I'm going to blow your house down. What is that? That's all ridiculous cluster B behavior. The only person that wouldn't notice that is someone that is so used to seeing cluster B behavior, it appears normal. That's what I would say.
Ever going to break up. They were talking about getting married. They were talking about a life. They were buying furniture for that house. They were making a life for themselves. Period. That's it. They weren't. No, look, this has been thrown on me. They were not breaking up. And anyone who says that, sorry, that is untrue. That is a lie. And that is a narrative that the prosecution needed to go to put my daughter in a bad light, to make it seem like she had a thing against this kid. Because if she was going to break up with this kid, she would have told my wife, and that never happened.
Okay, Steve, I'm telling you what the prosecution's case was.
Well, the prosecution's case is based on lies and
all right,
narrative.
That's your opinion. What I'm saying is that's what the trial is for.
I think it's a fact. I think it's fact, because you can't get.
Well, if it were a fact, you got to remember, I'm a lawyer, right?
Yeah,
if it were a fact that they lied, then she would not be in prison. So it is your opinion that they lied.
Unless there's a fix or a conspiracy with Nancy Margaret Russo, who shares the same last name as
but they're not related. Then Steve, they're not related.
They're not blood related. There's a relationship. My understanding is that Christine Russo is in her court all the time. They have a working relationship. The Russo family's big. This is a fix.
I don't know anything about that part.
Do you have any proof that they knew each other?
Hey, I have as much proof that it's a fix and that the judge is dirty or incompetent as they do that my daughter did this with purpose. All I have to do is say it, so it's true, right? That's what the prosecution did. Well, she's breaking. They did.
No, they have standards in two cases, right? The charging is probable cause, very low, lowest standard we have. Probable cause basically means it's a 50-50. So charging is a low bar. That's why you can indict a ham sandwich.
Wow.
This is not about possibility. It's about probabilities. That's what beyond a reasonable doubt means.
Well, there's a lot of reasonable doubt that was ignored.
So let's talk about why. What the judge saw, assuming the judge isn't dirty, and again,
I don't disagree with that completely. I think there was some reasonable doubt that wasn't addressed. But Chris Cuomo has the correct follow-up here. Let's go into that.
Appeal that was rejected, and then the
Yeah,
Supreme
let's
Court
see, let's
didn't
see.
take.
What do we have here? Sweet Caroline, hark the herald angels sing. Sweet Caroline, thank you very much for the $10 super chat. Jared, Steve, and thank you to the flock of black sheep too for all of your support. Jared, Steve seems so desperate to clear Mackenzie's name. What kind of therapy could help him to accept that it appears that Mackenzie is totally responsible for the deaths of two people? I would say what he would need is some spirituality, honestly. He would need a program of sorts, similar to a 12-step program or a smart recovery program, where it starts with being honest. It starts with being honest with yourself and being honest with others, and having humility, admitting your shortcomings, admitting where you can do better. Those kinds of things would be because his character is ultimately the issue. And that's the biggest thing that doesn't get addressed in the DSM. Character. What's an old school word for character? Is someone an asshole or not? Right? People that used to just have poor character were called assholes. But nowhere in the DSM, where do they address assholes? Because here's the thing that Shadow and I want to emphasize. People of any diagnosis could also potentially be an asshole. No one likes to talk about that, but it's certainly true. And what is being an asshole usually? I came up with the definition of it. An asshole is someone that is either extremely selfish, rude or obnoxious, or inconsiderate of others. Any behavior that you think is an asshole behavior, I can guarantee you it's going to fall under one of those three. What addresses it? Programs that work on your character, developing some sort of spirituality, working on the quality of person that you are. What kinds of things do that? And that's the only problem with CBT, DBT. That doesn't necessarily do that. That doesn't necessarily help you to live by principles. Some of it can overlap in a way, but it's not the same. It's not the same. Living by principles, spiritual principles, is what Steve would need. That is Shadow and Jared's assessment. Thank you again, Sweet Caroline.
Up the case.
To me, Cuyahoga County's like I can't speak for an appellate court that brings up an illegal procedure in a trial, and all they do is slap the prosecutor's hand. The prosecutor illegally changed the coroner's report from accidental to homicide in between the bind over and the thing. And the appellate court brought attention to this and then just went, oh, don't do it again. There's so much wrong with how this was handled, how it was brought to trial. I'm sorry. Nobody, no lawyer, no person is ever going to make me believe that my daughter did this on purpose. Show me that evidence. And if you're going to say the black box says she did it with purpose, that is.
So I would say to Steve, what's your explanation for why the gas pedal's all the way to the floor? What is your explanation? Are you going to try to tell me POTS is your explanation? And I would say this is why that's BS. If it was truly POTS and she was passed out, Dominic or Davion would have been able to pull her out of the passengers or out of the driver's seat, lift her foot off the gas. That would have been first, right? If you're going 100 miles an hour and the person driving passed out, what's your first move? What's your first move? It's probably to try to either get her out of the driver's seat or at the very least, like get her foot off the gas and slow down. Because when you're slowed down, you're not in as deadly a situation. But while you're going over 60, 70 miles an hour, your speed is of the utmost importance. But if she was passed out, I think one of those things would have happened. But it didn't happen. Why? Because I don't think she was passed out. She wasn't passed out. She had her foot to the floor. What's your explanation? It's hard to explain away, isn't it? It's certainly hard to explain away.
Speculation.
Steve, I haven't said it because you haven't let me say anything, but that's okay. I understand why you're so upset about this, and you should be. I can't even imagine how I would be. And I got 3 kids, and they're all driving. So here's what I'm just trying to explain for the benefit of the audience to flesh out the issues. The judge was presented with evidence that the car went from a very casual turn of a corner to 100 miles an hour. There were no skid marks before a known intersection.
Oh, there is actually skid marks. There are actually skid marks.
Not in the trial record. Not in the trial record. In the trial record, they presented evidence.
It's on the body cam footage of the police.
So this dude is 8 years older than me. If he's 49, I'm 41. Interesting.
But I'm saying that they don't see any marks. This is what the judges said, right?
Again, my take on that is that the judge had a relationship with the Russo family, and that is why that judge made her decision on day one. She did nothing but open mail and
Steve, the problem with a trial, or the blessing of a trial, depending on how you look at it, is we only know what you can show. And what they showed was this car went from slow to very fast.
Well, I just looked it up, and it said he's 59. Steve Shirilla is 59 years old, unless it's a different Steve Shirilla. No, it says this. Born February 13th, 1967. 59 years old. 5'9". That makes more sense.
With no real turns through a sign and into a building.
Why?
But that was all stated there and not countered by your case.
That is why the lawyer
That's the skid mark.
there. I don't know if you can see. If you can see, there's the skid marks right there. That's in the discovery, right?
Right.
That's from the body cam footage. So look, I can't
Miss Amanda, you tricked us all because you said 49 first.
explain the speed. Kids being kids. I can't explain. Was it the car, or was it the boys, or was it her? There's 4 possibilities.
But none of the data suggests anything happened with the car. And there's not even a suggestion of any real braking.
Well, you don't know that because there's no information from 4.74 seconds back to that turn.
Right. But that's a lot of time, by the way.
4 seconds, that's 100 feet or less.
But I'm saying 4 seconds. No. 4 seconds is a long time.
Listen,
a fat guy can run a 40-yard dash in about 4.7 seconds. You know what I'm saying? That's a long time. 4.7 seconds.
I don't know.
Going at that rate of speed of acceleration.
Not in a half a mile. Not in a half a mile road. It's not. That's
all I'm saying, Steve. Again, I'm not here to make the case. I'm here to test the case, and I'm just telling you.
And I'm arguing that your data and what you're using as data is not completely reliable.
I'm just using what was presented at trial.
I know what was presented at trial, and that's what I'm having fault with, and that's why I have fault with the lawyer. That's why we are making an appeal. That's why we'll never stop fighting this, because something is wrong. Hey, this is 4 years, and this is still going on. There's something fundamentally wrong with how my daughter was tried, and I don't care what's in the trial transcripts. I don't know what my lawyer was doing or her.
Here's the thing. There are some points Steve is making. Like, he's making, for every 10 points he makes, there's 1 good point and 9 terrible ones. And it's all also compounded by how he's presenting it. But there is a way to present the one case where I think, you know what, the defense lawyer could have done a better job. I think they could have done a better job forcing the prosecution to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. Some of that involves giving other alternatives that don't involve pots, by the way. So I do think they could have done that.
Or not my lawyer. I don't know what he was doing. I have no idea. It makes no sense to me. And to have a sitting judge who's been in the trial on that bench for as long as she has, not to be able to decipher fact from fiction. Okay, her summation, everything she said, has no evidence whatsoever. There's no support in the evidence whatsoever. It's just not there. In fact,
thank you so much, Sweet Caroline, for this from your flock of black sheep. Thank you so much, Jared and Shadow. Well, From Shadow and I's heart to you all, thank you very much. You're all very amazing, and you've helped us grow to over 42,000 subscribers here. The next step is 50,000. So we really appreciate all of your support because we wouldn't be here without you all. Remember, likes are free. So is subscribing to the channel. And thank you very much again to all of you.
There are people that even said that two things didn't happen. Okay. I don't get it. I don't get how a sitting judge who's supposed to know the law and understand the law.
What do we have here? Gifted won the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect membership from Anne Marie. Shadow says, thank you very much. The Lords of YouTube Random decide who will get this membership. But when whoever gets it, they will be able to get access to the members-only live streams. They are Q&As and chill-and-As, so we have a grand old time in there. So let's see. Let's see who gets it. Hello there, Colleen. Welcome. Shadow and I say hello.
Come up with that kind of summation. This is personal. Her submission was personal. It wasn't legal. It wasn't black and white. It was personal. And the way she interrupted my wife when my wife was pleading for my daughter's life or for, pleading for my daughter. That's what a mother should do. And to have my wife vilified for saying, look, give mercy to my kid is wrong. And look, this case is wrong from top to bottom. The way they arrested her, how they arrested her, from the detective in Strongsville omitting evidence in interviews, from the prosecution making up a narrative and finding ways to make her look bad. And when all the evidence they have, any evidence, is 4.74 seconds of nonlinear black box information. That's it. And she turned on the road. That's it. That is the only evidence they have. And that is car information. Nobody was in the car. You weren't in the car. I wasn't in the car. I'm not saying this, and this. What I'm saying is something happened in that car prior to 4.74 seconds.
Remember,
and I don't know
the reason you don't know is because your daughter says she doesn't recall.
Well,
that's why we don't know. That's why we have to piece it together. Because the only person who can tell the story says there's nothing to say.
So I should go tell my daughter, hey, remember something, and say Dominic Russo and Davian Flanagan.
I'm not telling you to do that. I'm not telling you to do that.
Saying. I'm hypothetically speaking here. So nobody believes my daughter. She had a femur broken. She had a fibula broken. She had broken ribs. She had lacerated spleen, liver. Both carotid arteries are damaged. She had bruises all over her face. I don't know how this kid survived. She got hit in the head. You can forget. I don't get the reasoning. Oh, it's convenient that she forgot. Well, that's the truth. I would think if my daughter meant to kill this kid prior to that accident, she would want to kill him now. And she hasn't shown any of that. For 3 months, I watched my kid cry herself to sleep, all beat up in bed, watching videos.
The woes me pity card doesn't work well here. Thank you so much, Sweet Caroline and the flock of black sheep. That's wonderful. And YouTube says on my screen that Danielle was gifted this membership. Danielle is a beautiful soul. Yay. And Shadow and I certainly agree with that sentiment. Danielle is a beautiful and lovely soul. Inside and out, as they would say, right, Sweet Caroline? So thank you very much for that. We're glad the Lords of YouTube Random decided to bless Danielle with that.
And music and pictures of this kid. For 3 months, I sat with her. Okay? The prosecution has no right saying she wasn't remorseful. There's no evidence that she wasn't.
What about the social media solicitation?
There's a big difference between having self-pity and trying to avoid accountability and responsibility and feeling remorseful. To me, none of her behaviors strike me as remorseful at all. When she's in jail talking to her mother, not really. I just don't feel like it's hit home for her. And again, Like if you do really care and you do feel sorry, your behaviors will be congruent. And it doesn't really seem that way.
And what looked like she was trying to build her brand.
That she wasn't trying to build her brand. Where did that come from? That is just a fabrication and part of the narrative. She went to
Steve. I'm just pointing out what they said she was doing on social
true.
media and the DMs that they showed.
What DMs exactly did they show?
The DMs of her talking to different brands. Thank you for contacting me. I'm excited to work with you.
Oh, okay. She was in the process of becoming a model, so she was working with people. Okay, and a couple days after, she was supposed to do something with the modeling. And hold on.
It was a jewelry company collaborate with Mackenzie and her friend. They just wanted to send
That was something about a collaboration that was prior to the.
It's almost like Natalie should be talking to Chris Cuomo if she knows all the answers here.
Accident. That was something that was involved prior. It wasn't okay. That some of that's taken out of context. It's blown out of proportion. What is she supposed to dig a box or dig a hole and just hide in the hole the rest of her life after this?
No, but it was right after.
Well, what does that mean? So she's not allowed to live? She's lucky to be alive.
I'm not judging it, Steve. I'm telling you what is out there.
I don't care. Listen, I don't care.
Used for the narrative and giving you a chance to explain.
So the problem for Steve also, he seems to be hypersensitive to criticism and perceived criticism. Granted, when the internet turns on you, it's not very fun. But even so, this defensive nature doesn't make him look good at all. And when the microscope is on your daughter after that incident, you got to be mindful that what they're doing and how things look do really matter in the eyes of the prosecution and in the eyes of public opinion. It does absolutely matter. And think about how Sheriff Nanos, for example, was at that basketball game within a week of Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. Now, on one hand, yeah, you're off, you can do what you want. But on the other hand, it just didn't look good. It didn't look good for the image of someone who is really concerned about Nancy being missing and trying to find her. So it's one of those things where technically it's not a problem, but it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good when you're taking leisure and you're the sheriff and there's no leads on the biggest case in your jurisdiction. It just doesn't look good. You should avoid those public appearances. You should show the public that you're burning the midnight oil, as they say, 24/7. That would look good, but it doesn't look good to be at a basketball game. And the same thing applies to Mackenzie here. It just doesn't look good to be applying to these modeling things and being a social media person. It's like, granted, like, so even for me, like, I would have to be careful if I got into a situation like this, or I would be accused of, oh, look at him, he's doing the social media. And it's like, well, what are you supposed to do when it's your job? But when it's not your job, like it wasn't Mackenzie's job, what do? You probably should stay away from that kind of thing. You should probably stay away from anything where it looks like you're too happy or loving life, living life. The correct emotions to have in public are genuine remorse and sorrow, and that's about it. And genuine remorse and sorrow for the families of Dominic and Davion. Anything outside of that is just not going to look good. It is what it is.
Explain it or contest it. But that's the job.
But it's not true. It's not completely true.
I don't know whether or not it's true. I only know what was said. I'm asking you why it was said and what it means and why it is an indicative that she had a nonchalance right after this.
It's not nonchalance. It's life. It's life. 3 months later, okay, being that the police and the courts never took her license away, never charged her with any car, she had a job interview. So we let her drive 3 months after this thing. So we let her go to the interview, which she got the job. Because what is she supposed to not do anything the rest of her life over this? Is she supposed to just turn away and shut up and never do a word? Listen, everything that's happened after this accident, a lot of it's been blown out of proportion. And it's unfortunate that the internet is allowed to run rampant with their nonsense. Okay. I don't care what anybody says about me. I'm a big boy. I can take anything they say. I don't care. I really don't care. Unless you're in my boat, I don't care. Sorry. Say what you want. Make a little mean.
So this is the thing about that, Steve. What you do speak so loudly, I can't hear what you say. You say you don't care, but your extremely defensive reactions betray what you really care about. It betrays what you really feel. If you truly didn't care, you wouldn't be getting so defensive and you would be more congruent with not caring. What does not caring look like? You would say something along the lines of, people are allowed to say what they want. We live in a free country. It's their First Amendment right to do so. And that's it. But you also have to be calm about it. But his tone is high strung and defensive. So when he says, I don't care, everything he's conveying in this interview says the opposite.
Blah, blah, blah. Go crazy. Okay. I don't care. You have fun. Okay. You're the people out there are what's making this continue on and on and on. But the problem here isn't what I did. It's not what she did after the fact. It's what the court did to her. It's what the prosecution did to her. And it's the lack of evidence that is there. Now, black box information, sure.
What do we have here, says Shadow. Got some gifts from US Dale. Gifted 5 The Wizard of Radical Self-Respect memberships. Shadow and I thank you so much, Dale. We are absolutely happy for yours and the rest of the flock of black sheep support. Let's see who the lords of YouTube random decide deserve these gifts. Let's see. Thank you very much, Dale. Shadow and I appreciate it very much. Teresa got one.
The car did this, the car did it. Put the car in jail. But you have no evidence of why. And you can't just say, well, the science says she was going fast, so that's intent. That is absolute BS. Okay. And many lawyers that we've spoke to have agreed with that. I would think,
but not the appellate court and not the Supreme Court.
Oh,
listen, hold on. I came
problem.
into this saying to you, Steve, listen, I didn't cover this. Okay. And I didn't because, it was a tragic circumstance, but there are lots of tragic circumstances and you got to make choices in my business.
Gotcha.
But now that I'm analyzing crimes, I gave it fresh eyes. And the fact that they didn't argue diminished capacity when she had THC in her system, the fact that they chose a bench trial, and the fact that they did not put on any significant case in chief for the defense is why the judge had the opportunity to decide as she did.
Yes, I agree with your assessment on what the lawyer did and did not do. I totally agree. Yeah, this is where our dilemma is. We need help fixing this because there was a problem here with the lawyer.
But you have new lawyers now. Why did the appellate court and the Supreme Court refuse to acknowledge all that you're saying?
My understanding is this is how it was. This is how it was addressed to me with the second set of lawyers that we got. That we're not going to get any relief in Cuyahoga County because that is how Cuyahoga County is. Okay, right, wrong, or whatever. I don't know why the appellate court brought to attention the illegal proceeding of changing that coroner's report and then never did anything about it. Okay, I don't know. You have to ask them.
Because they didn't believe it was reversible error, meaning that they may not have followed the strict procedure of how to do it, but the findings were there.
If it would have been a jury, it would have biased the jury. If the judge wasn't already biased, it would have biased the judge. That's where the problem goes. Mind you, I don't think it would have biased the judge because I believe she was already biased before she walked in that courtroom. And she said, I don't have a blood relation. And that's to me is all it takes. She has other relationships with that family, and that's it. And nobody's going to tell me differently. In fact, when this first happened, we had heard on the internet, mind you, this is what I heard. Somebody sent a note or it was posted someplace that
I'm a buff baby that can dance like a man. I can shake him
Sorry.
like Danny, I can shake him like a. I'm a buff baby
What
that can
is
dance
that?
like a man. I can.
Steve's ringtone. Pretty wild, huh?
it's my phone. It's a phone ring. Anyway, sorry.
That's your ringtone.
It's for a friend of mine.
What we have here, I think Miss Amanda gifted a membership here too. Miss Amanda, thank you so much for this. Shadow and I really appreciate it. We'll see who the Lords of YouTube Random decide gets this one. Paying it forward. Shadow and I are all about paying it forward. We love it. We love it. So thank you so much.
Fine. It's a
Okay.
friend. Sorry, I don't mean to smile. I'm not making light of it.
Steve, I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to go through these.
But I'm going to be judged. It's not you that I'm not that I'm worried about it. It's what I say and how it's going to be taken. This will be a meme somewhere else. I'm not smiling because I find this funny.
So again, so he's 59 years old, but all this energy and vibe is just like the maturity of a teenager, or if that. That's ultimately the problem here. This maturity is just not looking good. So that's part of the issue, of course. Doesn't help Mackenzie at all. And granted, either way, Mackenzie was going to be a handful. But when you have parents that don't even recognize toxic behaviors, cluster B behaviors, what do you expect? It's not going to go much better if they don't even recognize those behaviors.
I'm not smiling, and I find this asinine that this is going on. And not that I'm talking to you. Everything that's been said and done is just unbelievable, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't get it. And it's just,
Sweet Caroline says, thank you so much, Sweet Caroline and the flock of black sheep. Let's all hit the like button. If we love being here together, then let's show it. Congruency does mean so much. Yes, Sweet Caroline is absolutely correct about that. Like I said, we can get to 75. I can try to gift some more memberships here. Thank you very much, Sweet Caroline. Because it is a new month after all. And we'll have to see if I have them to give.
just smoke and mirrors to hide the fact that my daughter was unjustly charged. And we can argue this till you're blue in the face until someone can.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm asking you for your perspective on it. Do you believe that your daughter has any responsibility for what happened?
She was driving. As a driver in Ohio, you have responsibility. Yes, she was a driver. But if she had a heart attack, hypothetical, if she had a heart attack in that car that caused this accident, is she?
We have a very different situation.
Well,
it's an accident.
I'm using it as an example.
It's an accident.
Okay, what if she did? What if we could prove that her POTS caused her to pass out and she seized in the car?
Then it would be an accident.
What if we can prove that either one boy or the other boy did something in the car that caused the accident?
Then she would not have the intent, and maybe not the act, to trigger a charge.
What if we can prove that the car malfunctioned? This is hypothetical. I'm not.
Then it was an accident.
Okay.
And maybe there's a case against the manufacturer.
Okay. So with those 4 things or 3 things that I brought up here, the POTS, the car, the boys, the other, okay, one of those 4 or 5 things, or a combination of several, she wouldn't be responsible. Yes, she should have been charged with vehicular homicide. She's the driver of the car. She has the responsibility as the driver. Listen, if you can prove to me that she did this with intent and purpose, then she's right where she belongs. I get it.
That's what they get from the texts where she says, I feel like killing someone. I want to bang my head against it. Dom saying that he needs space. Her saying no.
That's not intent. That's not proof of intent. That is, how many have you ever said to anybody, oh my God, I'm going to kill you?
Yes.
Okay. And if they died, should you be charged with murder?
No, but I'd have to explain it.
Okay. It's an analogy. I don't know how many times I've probably said, oh my God, I'm going to freaking kill you.
And again, part of the problem here for Steve is even having this Netflix documentary made, doing all of these interviews, a lot of this stuff is just better left very brief and done behind the scenes, not 90-minute interviews, right? It just doesn't, especially when the tone and tenor is really more about just trying to defend Mackenzie. I mean, there's a way to do what he's trying to do in a better way.
over something stupid. It doesn't mean I'm going to kill you. And some of the stuff they used against her, like the thing that happened 2 weeks before, the supposed where she threatened to crash the car, that didn't happen. She did not threaten to crash that car.
How do you know?
Because we've got text messages that state otherwise. My understanding is that they had an argument in the car. Dominic grabbed the wheel. It almost caused the car to crash. So my daughter pulled over, told him to get the hell out of the car. And then there's text back and forth with Dominic's mother, my wife, stating it. I could send those to you if you'd like to see them. They're in. Okay. I could send them to you. I can't.
They're out there.
Yeah, I know that. That is what happened. And then we got him apologizing, this and that. So he did that. That was not my daughter. And then Christine, in the process of my daughter saying, come get your kid or she's going to call me, she sent this guy named Christopher Martin to go fetch him. In the trial, Christopher Martin perjured himself, and he said that he went to get Dominic. He was driving, and I don't know how he got from where he was living to that car to get behind them. To hear her say that is a lie. What happened was they were already pulled over. Okay, Christopher Martin pulled up behind her. He says that he was on the phone with Dom. He was not on the phone with Dom, because in the interview that are on Crime Circus that the detective did with Christine Russo, she says, I was on the phone with Dom until Christopher got there.
Right.
Okay. That's true. That happened. That is a fact. Okay. Christopher Martin lied. He said he pulled up while they were going. He was on the phone with Dom and he heard her say, I'm going to crash this car. Then they pulled over. She was already pulled over. And the text messages that my wife and my sister-in-laws we got off her phone and then we got off my wife's phone state that. And the prosecution knew it and still put let me call him Hench, because this is the felon that lives in Christine Russo's basement. Okay. So a sitting judge took the word of a 7-time felon. And our lawyer did nothing to counter it, because
that's your problem.
I agree.
You say it now, but it didn't happen in trial.
And that's why we're arguing this. I should have been arguing this right from day one. This is where we need help. This is what we're looking for. We're looking for help because an injustice was done to my daughter. A witness perjured himself on the stand. How do I fix that? But there's no way of fixing it, because I got a judge, because every appeal goes back to her court. It goes back to her court, and she gets to decide. And the reason she's not going to go against her, because her ego.
And again, even just framing this whole thing as an injustice to Mackenzie is disrespectful to the victims and their families. No, that's part of the problem here. This is why he needs a PR person, because this whole thing is just the wrong tone and tenor.
Go, okay, and she's biased. She's either biased, she's on the take, or she's
incompetent. Well, when you appeal, it will go to other judges. And if they order a new trial,
it goes right back to her court. So if the appellate court would have said this is going to go back to trial, it goes back to Nancy Margaret Russo's courtroom.
Right, but then you would argue that she's got to recuse herself.
Well, we did that at this trial because of the last name, and she said,
"I know, but that's not
a
thing.
Blood relation," which is
but
a
that's
lie.
Not a thing. I mean, there are a lot of people named Russo.
Yeah, but not in Cuyahoga County. They're all related. And I'm sorry, if it's not with Christine Russo, it's with somebody else that's connected to her. Look, again, I have just as much proof that there's a conspiracy or a fix or a favor that they had that my daughter did this with purpose. Sorry, that's it. And if you don't want to believe it, that's fine.
No, listen, it's not about.
By the way, we at least have to get to 75 likes. That's not a very high amount. Shadow would really appreciate it.
What I believe. I'm here to give you an opportunity to say what you mean and to test why you believe it. Okay. And that's what I hope you understand that I'm doing. What just came out from what came out from TMZ, where they grabbed audio from prison phone calls, where Natalie is criticizing the family of Dom's family, calling them evil. What is that about?
Let's see. For 4 years, there hasn't been a peep out of them for the most part. My understanding, there's a half sister, a Christine Russo Jr., and I don't want to talk bad about the family at all. I understand their anger and I understand they lost somebody, but to go online and badmouth anyone who's defending my daughter makes them look bad to me. Okay. And my wife was talking to my daughter, and it was a private conversation. I won't say it's a private conversation. It's a conversation between my wife and my daughter. And it has nothing to do with anybody else. And if she, and it's unfortunate that the Russo family or others have been saying the stuff they're saying. Again, nobody knows my wife. Nobody knows me. Nobody knows my daughter. And the make past judgment on us is just narrow-minded nonsense from internet trolls. And hey, make your podcast, say what you want. Again, it's unfortunate. And like I said, I feel for the families. I don't know what they want me to do. Should I wear a black dress and a veil the rest of my life? Look, I'm sorry Dominic and Davion passed away in this accident. And that is all this was an accident. And it's unfortunate and it's tragic. And I can't imagine their pain in that. I can't. I'm sorry. But at some point, I have to defend my daughter. My daughter who was wrongly convicted. If she would have been charged with vehicular homicide and put in 5 years or whatever, then she got what she deserved. There's no proof to change that. Vehicular homicide is when someone dies when you're in a car accident, and there's no other answer. And there is no other answer in this case. Just because you want it to be murder doesn't mean that it is. Just because you don't like my daughter doesn't mean she's guilty of murder. Just because you don't like what you see on the internet about my daughter doesn't mean that it's murder. That's speculation. That is reckless speculation on anybody's part. Mind you, I don't know what happened. I don't. I wasn't in the car. And unless you were in that car, you have no business saying you know what happened. Tim Troop, the prosecutor, in that video said, I ruled everything out. Ruled what out? He didn't. What evidence did you use to rule things out? He was going for one thing and one thing only. The detective, 3 or 4 days later, had one idea what it was. He wasn't looking anywhere else. He wasn't finding any other information. Okay, that's not. The detective had a one-track mind. And the detective on the stand said, I don't know what happened. And the lead prosecutor, Michael Malley, is on camera saying, nobody will ever know what happened. So if the three main people finding the evidence don't know what happened, how do you charge somebody? I don't. Speculation is not evidence. It's guessing.
Speculation is not evidence, but probable cause is a very low standard, and they definitely had probable cause to charge. Beyond a reasonable doubt is a different standard. And the judge found it, and then you have the right to appeal, and the judge ignored it. Court upheld it.
She didn't found it. She ignored it. She outright ignored it. Okay. When my understanding, when her lawyer tried to object to things, she just overruled. Is it overruled? When she?
Yes.
Okay. She overruled almost everything he objected to. Look, I don't know if he was just. I don't know what he did. I don't.
I will say the judge certainly didn't seem to like Mackenzie one bit. She did. I think she saw through some of the facade there, and yeah, she definitely saw through it. And I don't think she liked her one bit.
Hindsight with him, I just wish I would have chose a different lawyer. I wish I would have chose a different set of lawyers the second time for the appel. I don't know how, as a lawyer, you don't.
Thank you so much. Here's Sweet Caroline and the flock of black sheep. Jared, would you call Steve's behavior loyalty and love for his daughter, or is it about image as a father? I think a combination of both. I would say some of him is like, oh, this is Mackenzie's the golden child, daddy's little girl in a way. I mean, remember, Mackenzie's asking him to rub his feet, get him warm milk, whatever milk means in that context. And so I think he's willing to overlook all sorts of things in the name of, that's my little girl. That's my little princess Mackenzie. And so I think there's a bit of delusion there on his part. He's not seeing it clearly. And what proves he's not seeing it clearly is the fact that he said that Dominic and his daughter were going to get married and there was no way they were going to break up. Now, You only say that if you have no idea about what those text messages say. The text messages between Dom and Mackenzie clearly stated that Dominic was trying to break up with her. He just didn't follow through on it. It's the only problem. But he tried many times, said, I don't want to argue. I don't want to fight. Life's too short. I think we need a break. But Mackenzie just wasn't having it. Mackenzie was saying, nope, you're not allowed to break up. You were doing so good this morning. What happened? So she didn't know how to hear no for an answer. Probably because that would work with her parents as well. Probably contributed. So that's what I would say is going on with Steve there. There's some delusion about his golden child daughter. And of course, I mean, he has a version of love for her for sure, but it's too mixed up with the delusion and putting her on a pedestal. So thank you again, Sweet Caroline.
I don't know how to read a calendar. Mind you, I don't think it was late. I don't think it was a day late. I don't think the second set of lawyers did a bad job. I think they were right on what they were saying. But for the prosecution to say it was a day late in a leap year when my lawyer didn't have all the transcripts available to him that were asked, and there's no leeway. Oh, it was late, so that's it. It's unfortunate.
Are you open to not being able to see this any other way because this is the love of your life?
Listen, I'm her father. I'm biased. It's my daughter. Any parent should be this way. But if you can show me actual evidence.
It's one of the only honest things he said that, yeah, I'm biased. Yes, he is. It's also odd for Chris Cuomo to frame it as the love of your life. Who phrases their daughter as the love of their life? An interesting phrasing, I would say. You could say maybe the apple of your eye, but the love of your life? Isn't that more reserved for romantic love, generally speaking? So odd. But then he ruined it, because then Steve said, well, every parent should be this way. It's like, no, they shouldn't. Not every parent should be the way you are. Absolutely not.
Actual, not speculation, that my daughter did this with purpose, intent, or prior calculation, then she is right where she belongs. Now, the bindover judge, the juvenile judge.
The intent is found by, this is what the judge said. The intent is found by the lack of her trying to do anything to avoid it and doing what caused it.
For 4 seconds in a car that was already out of control, that had side airbags going off. Yeah, that's all the information you got. We don't know. Nobody knows why. Everybody keeps going back. Well, the scientific, the car was, you don't have any evidence from 4.74 seconds back to that turn, to that first turn.
Right. We just disagree on what that amount of time can reveal at that rate of acceleration, which I think is a lot. And you say not enough.
Our car guy said that the car was going fast. The car thought it was flipping over. The recorder went on. The airbags went off. The car hit the sign, veered into the wall. She did not drive directly into that wall. Okay, mind you, I think she just lost whatever was going on in the car. She lost track on that road. That's what I find more believable than what the prosecution's narrative of the story was. It makes more sense to me. And we also have a medical examiner that looked at her blood work and her stuff that said so much that it was probably a medical episode with POTS. We've got that. And that was in the
I think you had a better chance of arguing before a jury, at least, that it had something to do not with POTS, but pot, because of the THC content that she had in her blood, and arguing diminished capacity and whatever else she could relay about the events. But that's not how it went.
Well, she doesn't remember the events, so that's
what she says.
Okay, so that's what she says. So nobody knows what happened in that car. I can't make her remember. And mind you, she's never wavered in that statement. Why? If you knew you were going to jail for life, wouldn't you lie? Wouldn't you come up with at least a story? There's no witnesses. She's the only witness. Dominic Russo, Davian Flanagan attacked me in the car. I passed out. Someone hit me.
I can't explain it, but it certainly worked against her. I'll give you that.
Absolutely, because her lawyer did nothing for her, you know. And I this is why I feel it's a conspiracy. That's why I feel she was railroaded. This is why. Look, Tim Troop and Christine Russo are friends. Christine Russo worked in the prosecutor's office. She knows that she worked there. Don't tell me there's no favors, and don't tell me there's no relationship. I'm not saying blood. I'm saying relationship. There is a friend of something with the Russo family and that judge. And she can say, I don't have a blood relationship all the time.
If you think Steve should be quiet and learn how to have some humility, remember to hit the like button and throw Shadow a like vest the same way Brian Hooker should have to Lynette Hooker, but did not. Get your reps in on the like button. Only one rep needed on the subscribe button, but you can tell a few friends about the flock of black sheep. And as always, thank you for all the support. Shadow and I are very appreciative. All of the super chats, super stickers, and channel memberships and gifting of memberships, they help us pay for Shadow's soy-free hoodie snacks.
Grand jury judge was a Russo. The bindover judge was an O'Malley. The head prosecutor is an O'Malley.
I know, but just because they have the same names doesn't mean the same thing. But I want to go back over one thing, Steve, just so it's a little clear for people, because it got a little convoluted. The text chain, and you have a lot of
it's really a silly and ridiculous argument to do the last name thing when they're not related. It would be more of an argument if they have a working relationship. Emphasize that, not the fact that they have the same last name.
Information and context about it. This one particular part of Dominic's mother. July 17, 2022. It starts, you know all this already, but for the audience, can you come get Dom? He just grabbed my steering wheel on the highway trying to spin out my car and hurt me. I'm scared to drive because it's raining, so I just need him to get picked up. If he doesn't get out of my car, I'm calling my dad, so please get him out. Hench is on his way. Calm down for something, for whatever. For now, please. To be honest, I can't calm down when he just tried to end my life. Then he lied to you about it. I'm not trying to diffuse for now. I'm not mad at anyone. And then the next one is, just to give everybody the record, I don't think he's capable of that. This is your daughter, I believe. When he keeps telling me to shut up and to duct tape my mouth, I don't feel safe. He is also threatening to blackmail me to my mom. He's not getting out of the car. He also blocked me, so I can't go pick up any of my belongings at his house. I hope this is a learning experience for him on what not to do to a woman, because I really don't think he knows how to treat them at all. Stop the fighting and stop lying. When he gets his things, you can get yours. And then there's one more. First of all, I'm not lying about anything. Maybe you shouldn't take his word so seriously. You don't know how he treats me behind closed doors. It's never okay to try to end somebody's life or put their hands on people. No one should touch anyone. No fighting for sure in the car. He never put his hands on you. This is the mom. You need to tell him that. He tried to end my life today and told me, do you want to die? I almost hit the wall and I could have died. And she says, and you haven't blackmailed him with the cops 100 times? This was a shitty relationship.
It was, mind you, I don't like the word volatile. They were.
That was it. That's a shitty relationship, Steve. That's what the mother of the boyfriend.
Well, I'm glad Chris Cuomo is calling it out here and confronting him with the reality. He could have confronted him with more of the reality between Dom and Mackenzie's text messages. They were arguably even worse.
That's a shitty moment. Your daughter. That's a shitty moment in a relationship. That is not how the whole relationship went. That wasn't every day.
But that's still bad. Very bad. And I don't know. I don't know what Dom did or didn't do, but I have a suspicion that Mackenzie was projecting there. Her accusations were confessions. Thank you so much, Sweet Caroline and Flock of Black Sheep. Let's not take this amazing channel for granted. Let's keep this amazing channel and space alive. Hit the like button, please. Shadow says, amen, say it again. So hopefully we're at least at 75 likes by now. Shadow and I appreciate all of your support. from the bottom of our hearts. 76 trombones, Dana, Sweet Caroline, and the rest of the flock of black sheep, and we all love it. So thank you very much for that.
Thing that's a fight. That's a fight amongst young kids who don't know any better. And mind you, I'm not saying it doesn't correlate to this. It doesn't mean the whole relationship was bad. I watched this kid take my daughter to dinner. I watched him come over and cook for her. He went on vacation with us. He was at all our family functions. This kid treated my wife with respect. He treated me with respect. Now, I'm the dad, and I'm always the last one to know. I ended up having to go over to the house and get his stuff. And if I'd have known what had happened, there may have been bigger issues. But I didn't know this happened till after the accident. You know, what you just read, that back and forth. There'd be more to this, but Christine Russo lawyered up Dominic's phone so the police couldn't get anything off of it. And I don't know why she lawyered up that phone that way. So,
and that was Mackenzie, obviously, not your wife. That was Mackenzie and Dom's mom.
Yes, that's off of Mackenzie's phone. But there's also more with Mackenzie talking to my wife too about it.
Okay.
There's more to it. So it's Mackenzie talk. It's the text thread from Mackenzie talking to Dominic's mom, and there's a text thread of Mackenzie talking to my wife. So that the events that they used in trial didn't happen. That's Christopher Martin, aka Hench, because he gets things done, lied in court. He lied, and again, there's nothing I can do about it because the lawyer didn't do what he was supposed to do. And what am I supposed to do? Unfortunately, my daughter gets hurt by the lawyer she had. The first lawyer did nothing for her. The lawyer strong-armed her into having a bench trial over jury. How do I fix that? His bad decisions, his inability to defend her hurt my daughter. Now, the second set of lawyers, being late, either it was or it wasn't, okay, hurt my daughter. The law firm doesn't get a slap on the wrist. They don't get fined. They get away scot-free. You know who suffers? My daughter. And if that could have got in, maybe she would.
Again, like playing the victim routine for your daughter in this circumstance just doesn't really look good. Like there's a way to maybe give the argument for saying there's more things the defense attorney could have done to get past the reasonable doubt. Bruce Rivers, the criminal guy, the criminal lawyer, I think he thinks that as well, by the way. Granted, he's a defense lawyer too. So you got to keep that in mind. Even Emily from the Emily show, I think she was being pretty charitable to Mackenzie as well. I think she hasn't really gone into it, but I have not seen her going hard on her. That's for sure. If anyone's seen any of her coverage, but there's a lane for not playing the victim with, we don't really like the outcome. I think there's a lane for that.
Be free. Maybe she would have got another trial. Okay. Now you asked the question about the process of the appeal, the state level, the Ohio State Appellate Court looks at that much. They don't look at anything really. The second set of lawyers says if we're going to get any relief in this court or in the courts, it's going to be at the federal level. That's what was expressed to us. We weren't going to get anywhere in Cuyahoga County because how Cuyahoga County works, and I don't want to call them corrupt, but wink, wink. The state only looks at a few things, and in a year, and so we have to wait to get to the federal. I got to get it away from elected officials, and that's what our lawyers suggested to us. We have to get it away from the elected officials or the elected seats on the court. So, again, I understand there's 4.74 seconds of black box information, and it's nonlinear, and it shows that she didn't brake supposedly, and it shows that the gas pedal was down and that the car was going fast. I get it. Okay. But that doesn't tell me why. And why is way more important.
This guy's singing freaking the Backstreet Boys or NSYNC. Tell me why.
Than, well, the car was doing this. That black box doesn't say why. It never will. It just never will. And I'm sorry if that upsets the families. And I'm sorry if it upsets the families that we're trying to defend and free our daughter. That's my job as a parent. I love my kid. Okay. Am I being biased? No, because I got enough common sense to look at the facts. And I've looked at everything and I've reread it and gone over it and talked to this person or talked to that person, hash this out. We are looking for help. We are looking for anyone that can help us. Okay. I'm sorry. I feel my daughter was unjustly charged. She was unjustly tried, and she was, and I believe the judge made an error. I don't believe the judge acted in good faith. I think there's judicial misconduct in this case.
But you can think it, but the standard is whether or not you can prove it. And it has not been done with any measure of satisfaction.
I think some of it I can prove, and if you don't have evidence,
but then you'll do it in court. That's the only place it counts.
That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get it back in court.
Have you done anything to try to get Mackenzie's memory restored? Have you ever tried any hypnosis or had her work with a memory specialist?
I'm going to say TMZ. Good old Harvey wants to. We talked about that. I don't know if that's going to do any good. Sure. If they want to try that and she's up to it and her lawyer's up to it, fine. I have nothing to hide. And I don't believe she does either. I believe she truly doesn't remember. I know my daughter, and I know when she's not telling the truth. I can see it in her face. There's something in her expression, something in her eyes. What do you want me to say? I'm not going to vilify my daughter.
I'm not asking you to. I'm just asking you to, I'm just giving you what I did this for, Steve, is I agree with you that I don't think that the case was about why to the satisfaction of anybody. It's easy to draw conclusions. That's the nature. That's the nature of humanity, is people judge. But that's I wanted to give people an opportunity to understand this in a different way and have a new set of questions. And that's why I wanted to give you the opportunity.
We're going to get some. They're going to look at this subjectively or objectively, and that's all I'm asking people to do. I don't want to change anybody's mind. Look, I don't want my opinion out of your mouth. I want you to go look at what I'm talking about. And if I'm telling you that the detective from Strongsville on camera, on an audio record, he says, I am not putting this in evidence, when Dominic Russo's mom says, no one's going to see this, right? To me, that's an issue. That's an issue of misconduct. That is an admission of admittance. When the lead detective who found all this evidence or the speculation or this whatever says, I don't know what happened. How do you charge somebody on I don't know what happened? You got a lead prosecutor on camera saying nobody knows what really happened. They don't know what happened. You got the prosecutor in the documentary, in between his reflecting picture, his glory picture, and him walking down the hall, says, we ruled everything else out. I want to know how and what evidence they use to rule everything else out. They did.
I get what you're saying. And if you get habeas corpus and federal relief and they take the case, you'll have another opportunity for your lawyers to make this. But that's what the trial was for. The trial was to vet what the prosecution put up as proof.
I get it.
And why?
Well, the burden of proof is on the prosecution. And,
that's right.
And I'm going to say, even though my hindsight is 20/20 with Jim McDonnell, the lawyer, I would hope that he looked at the evidence as a lawyer and saw there's nothing here. They don't have a case of purpose or prior.
Well, look, I'm happy to talk to him about it.
No, he won't talk to you. This is going to make him look bad, and he's going to lose business.
But the only reason to go for a bench trial here is because you believe it's a technical case and that you can win on the data and that the judge will understand it in a way that a jury may not. That's the only thing that makes sense.
I wish I would have known that before it was done. I wish I would have had if I'd have known we can get that changed, I would have been all over my daughter telling her. I was surprised when it came back to me that, mind you, and I didn't find out that he argued with her. Or you're going against my better judgment. And this guy's a big guy. My daughter is 90 pounds, 100 pounds wet. Okay. She just turned 18. She's a kid. She's still a kid. And they have this big burly man argue with her that, it's a bad idea. I'm sorry. They would have never found 12 people to buy the prosecution's case.
Well, you're not going to know now. I mean, unless you get a retrial, because that was the decision that you guys made.
That's my problem with this. There's so many things I thought were done wrong to my daughter. I believe there's an injustice with how the lawyer acted. I believe there's an injustice how the detective left out, omitted evidence, and is on camera saying he's going to do as much. I have a problem with how the appellate court brought attention to an illegal proceeding and then did nothing about it. And the argument was it wouldn't have mattered. You don't know if it would matter unless it goes back to court. And you can't just say, well, it wouldn't.
George, that's the line of the day. George says, the defense lawyer was more effective than any prosecutor. And that's about right.
Mattered. And for something to be a day late with a leap year and trial transcripts not getting there on time, that should have been taken into consideration. But again, I believe the appellate courts were just protecting one of their own. And that's my understanding of how Powder County works.
Again,
So
you can feel any way you want. Administration of justice is about only knowing what we can show. And I'm happy to offer you the opportunity now
they didn't
and
show
going
any
forward,
evidence. Show
Steve,
any
with
evidence of
whatever
purpose.
happens next.
But they didn't show any evidence of purpose. There's none. And the evidence they did use is a lie. It's sorry. What do you, I mean, I don't know what everybody else wants me to say.
Steve, I don't want you to say anything. I wanted to give you the opportunity to say what you think and why.
So the thing that Steve should have done differently then is back then, they should have actually had a little bit of, I don't understand why they weren't allowed to be there with her lawyer and her. Why couldn't they all be in on the discussion? That doesn't make much sense to me. The only reason why that would happen is if Mackenzie didn't want them there. Maybe that's what happened. But if you give them all a choice, don't you think they would all say, let's take this to a jury trial? I would think so. And I also would think a man would be more lenient as a judge than a woman in this case.
And I am saying why and what. Okay.
I got it.
Okay. I'm sorry. Like I said, I get what you're doing and I appreciate it. And I appreciate that the platform for it, but it is what it is. And again, until you can show me actual evidence, then I'm not going to believe it. Her mother's not going to believe it. Her family, my friends. And if the rest of the world wants to think she's guilty and hell on wheels and blah, 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 hey, knock yourselves out. Okay. What do you want me to do?
All that matters in these situations is what the justice system says.
Man, well, the justice system
not
is
the
wrong.
people online.
No,
But Steve,
again, the justice system
I am
is
a
wrong.
call away for whatever happens next. And
Okay.
I will do just like I did here. I know it's not comfortable to be tested on these things, but that's the job. And I'll offer the opportunity whenever you want.
I appreciate that. And and if more comes out, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. But like I said, if you want to vilify me for backing my daughter, go. Well, I can't stop you. Go crazy. Okay.
Steve, what it's going to be is what you and I just explained.
But New York, NYC cat lady, witnesses to what? Witnesses to what, though? Not witnesses to the crime. Witnesses to the conversation with the lawyer? I don't understand.
Experienced here. That's what I'm putting out. Okay.
Great. Yep.
All right. Thank you for taking the opportunity. Thank your wife as well. And again, make sure she knows I wasn't boxing her out from this.
No, I know. Well, she didn't want to be on camera. We got it.
That's fine. That's fine. That's her choice. Okay.
And I appreciate your time or offering me
All right.
this time. Thanks.
Steve, I'm here. You know how to get me.
Okay. We're good.
This is all.
So NYC cat lady, I don't understand that at all. Like that seems like a stupid rule. So what would they be witnesses to? I don't understand that part. All right, witnesses to what?
Food for thought for your own reckoning as critical thinkers. But I will raise a central problem for Mr. Shirilla. There is a difference between how you feel and a fact. There is a difference between being able to show what you know and having a feeling about it. He can say, I have as much proof that there's a conspiracy as they do that my daughter meant to do this. But that's not really true because we don't have any proof in a trial.
Thank you very much, Song Bits and Flock of Black Sheep. Sweet Caroline says, or Song Bits, Sweet Caroline. Jared, would you mind reading Songbit's message, please? Let's scroll to see what Songbit's message is. This message? Yeah, no more skin to wipe her fake tears. Save your tears for another day, as the weekend would say. Is that the one? Or is there another? I think that's the one Sweet Caroline's referring to. Or thank you, Steve. She was hell on wheels and is living. Be thankful. Yep, indeed. That's another one. That's probably the one Sweet Caroline was referring to. Well said. So this is what I'm trying to understand here. Attorney-client privilege is only between them. Anything she tells the lawyer in their presence is no longer privileged. So then you're saying the prosecutor could have then called her parents to the stand to go over what they're discussing with their lawyer? I mean, that seems like a really crappy rule for someone that just turned 18, honestly. Like, that seems like a justice. So basically, because you're being tried as an adult, you're forced to do your own thinking. When in reality, I mean, you better hope you got a good lawyer in that case. I don't know. I don't really like that, honestly. So any of you who have kids that are 18, could you imagine not being able to actually talk to your kids about what their defense is going to be like? That's wild. That's wild.
That has been vetted and tested the way we do about the data on the car and the surrounding context of.
And so I would say, NYC Cat Lady, I think that greatly helped the prosecution in this case too, because I think even her parents might have said, you know what? I don't know about this bench trial idea. I mean, you're putting a lot of pressure on the lawyer in that kind of situation where you better have a good lawyer. And it doesn't seem like they did.
Mackenzie Shirilla and her reputation and her relationship with Dom. And more importantly, yes, he blames the lawyers, but he was there in real time too. No, he's not an attorney. It's not fair for him to have the mastermind of the legal, kind of strategy. But to leave diminished capacity on the table when that could explain it. The Potts thing is not in the trial record. And that's something that
the Potts defense was garbage. I agree with that.
That was knowable and debatable, and it wasn't included. And it wasn't even a big part of the appeal. Now they say it will be.
So Ruth says, I guess this depends on the state then, doesn't it, NYC Cat Lady? When my son was 18, we sat down with his attorney and discussed strategies. So I guess depending on the case and depending on what happened, apparently that wasn't a breach of client-attorney privilege. But perhaps it also depends on the state.
Idea of Potts is one more reason why, the judge isn't buying it. Yeah, that's why you go to a jury. Why would you want to have one person deciding everything when you could have just 1 out of 12 hang that jury? I mean, the percentages aren't even close. That's why so few people choose a bench trial. And when they do, and I think it's the case here, and again, Mr. McDonald has to answer for himself, and he has an open opportunity to come here, which he has not taken. And that is, you think it's going to live and die by the strength of the EDR and the accuracy of it and what it tells and what it doesn't tell, and that there'll be reasonable doubt in that, and the judge will get it in a way that a jury may not. Because the judge will rely on the right context for how you're supposed to reckon data with the science, and a jury may just go with their lived experience and come to a false conclusion. Well, that wasn't the case here. And this judge seemed to believe it as much as you possibly could, that this was done intentionally. And I get why Steve Shirilla, as a parent, feels the way he does. And there's an irony in that, right? Because the main accusation about Steve Shirilla and his wife is that they're lousy parents. Now, again, I'm not here to judge them as parents. I'm here to judge the circumstances and test their answers on them and their understanding of them, which I did. And I think there's value in that. And now we know that they are trying very hard for a habeas, and I think they have a shot at it. That's not to say that I don't think that Mackenzie Shirilla is legally responsible and that this outcome doesn't make sense. I think it makes perfect sense. I think the strategy of the defense didn't make a hell of a lot of sense, and not just in hindsight. I don't know why, if you're trying to beat a murder case for intentional murder, you would leave diminished capacity on the table, especially when you know that the chain of custody and what they did with it was kind of screwed up, which makes it even easier for you to exploit it.
I mean, honestly, Danielle, the only reason why we really know about this case probably is because she lived. If she didn't live and she also died, there's no trial, there's no Netflix documentary, there's none of this because she's dead. And, you know, her parents, what do? I mean, they'd still probably, like the other Dom and Davion's families would still probably be pissed about, and they'd probably be mad at Mackenzie's parents, but at the same point, they'd all be in the same boat considering they all lost their kids. So it would kind of level the playing field, right?
And the bench trial thing, I unless, you know, I can't believe that it was anything other than him thinking that this was about the data. Because otherwise, I don't care what kind of prejudice you thought was in the air. You only need one to hang a jury. But I thought it was really interesting to see how Steve Shirilla processes the criticism of him and his wife and his daughter. And at the end of the day, there's only one person who knows why this happened. And she gave an answer, and I understand that the answer works against her more than anybody else. And why she's married to it, I don't know. But when people don't remember anything in a situation like this, it is very suspicious. And it was to this judge. And there's only one person responsible for that, and it's Mackenzie Shirilla. And I'm really glad that Steve Shirilla and his wife somewhat took the opportunity to confront the questions so that we can know where their head is, because we'll know where their strategy will take them going forward. So what did you think about what he had to offer and what was said, and what it tells you about how to feel about him and about this case and about where it goes going forward, if anywhere? Because again, the judge being named Russo, come on. The appeals court, the Supreme Court, now you have to go federal. Very, very difficult and rare in these circumstances. But that's what Cuomo Crime Time is about. It's not about shaping BS and provoking you to believe things that I don't have any basis to convince you of. It's to test what is out there and to help you have food for thought as critical thinkers. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for following. I hope you click in on the Clips channel that we have for Cuomo Crime Time so you can see excerpts of this in different contexts. But we're going to obviously always run everything in full so you get the full context, and then we'll put out clips of things that should be of interest to you, and it'll be there. So hopefully you'll subscribe and you watch, and it's a benefit to you. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity. We'll see you next time on Cuomo Crime Time.
Well, new channel, Cuomo Crime Time. So again, that's our breakdown there of that. Good riddance to that. We'll see what else is on the docket coming up here too. More interviews though. More interviews, more solo vids. We're still going to do these streams, of course, too. We'll see what the future has in store for all of us. But that is all Shadow and I have for you this evening. Hopefully you were entertained, entertained by Christopher Cuomo and Steve Shirilla, if not vomiting in your mouth at times, and being annoyed at his delusion. And that's basically what it is: delusion, avoiding accountability, just playing the victim for Mackenzie. Not the best. Certainly not the best. But we had a lot of great support from the flock of black sheep tonight. Shadow and I are very grateful. We have a nice amount of soy-free hootie snacks because Shadow is indeed very hormone and testosterone conscious. So thank you very much. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you. Shadow and I are always grateful for all the support that we get. And G. Ferraro is a new sub here, so the flock of black sheep should welcome him. I know Miss Amanda has been here a little bit more now too, but she's relatively new. A couple others I've seen here relatively new. Looper rhymes with hoopa like Jaws. And we'll see who else. Kathleen. I haven't seen Kathleen for a minute. If Shatilla. Good for the chuckles. Shatilla for the chuckles, Shadow says. Anne Marie, have a great night, everyone. So Julie Bugs and Song Bits and Rooster and Ruth. Who else? Vomit is a good description, Jared. I thought so. Shadow thought so too. Miss Amanda and Looper and Kathleen and Dee. Danielle, Autumn, George, Dana, G. Ferraro, welcome again. Pooh rhymes with Fubu. Snoop, Teresa, Jackie. Jackie, you should type. Maybe Jackie got a membership. We shall see. Lindsay, thank you very much. Shadow is the man. Have a great night, Lindsay. So till next time, folks. Till next time, make sure you've liked this video. Most of you probably already did. Let's see. Good night, Jackie. There you are. Have a great night. Sorry about that. The Lords of YouTube Random were not on your side then, Jackie. We'll see. There's more to give. Thank you all again.